Test, test.
The City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, is meeting in the council chambers today, Tuesday, June 6th at 6:07 p.m. for the purpose of discussing fiscal year 2024 departmental operating budgets and associated capital improvement plan projects. This meeting is being held primarily in the City Council chambers at 93 Washington Street, Salem, Massachusetts, on the second floor. As an alternative means to the primary means, people may access the meeting using the Zoom platform by entering webinar ID 821-7669-9079 and entering password 019909. Notice of this meeting was posted on May 31st, 2023 at 2:37 p.m. Joining us from the Committee on Administration and Finance are all members except Councilor Watson Felt. Joining us from the Committee of the Whole, we have Councilor Cohen, Councilor Morcillo, Councilor Prosnewski, and Councilor Varela. If you are joining us on Zoom, you may notice we look a little bit different than usual, having some technical difficulties, but hopefully you're connected and hearing us and enjoying the view of the back of my head. And we'll get into the business. So it looks like we're going to start with Park and Recreation this evening. So as I've said to a few other folks as they've joined us, pretend you've never met us, give us a brief overview of exactly what Park and Rec is responsible for, and then you can dive into the numbers.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I'm Tricia O'Brien, and I'm the Superintendent of Parks, Rec, and Community Services at the Jean Levesque Community Life Center here in Salem. My responsibilities are varied and include supervision of Parks and Rec, Winter Island Golf Course, the Witch House, Charter Street Cemetery, Pioneer Village, and Council on Aging. So tonight, obviously the first time I get to see you guys once a year with budget, I always want to start off with thanking my own staff for the amazing job that they do. As everybody knows who's had a staff that falls under them, you look as good as they make you look, right? So my staff is unbelievable. They serve our community with such passion and grace and patience and kindness. And it's just amazing what we do. We often hear from other cities of the great job that we do, including obviously our veteran services as well. I did ask some of my directors to come just to get a little bit of a FaceTime. We do this every few years, and there's a lot of kind of new faces on the council last year that you didn't maybe get to meet them. You might already know them, but I wanted to have them a chance to come talk about their budgets if you had any questions for them as well. So I have with me Dave Gilbert, the manager of Winter Island, and I have Paul Lever, superintendent of the golf course. Unfortunately, Elizabeth from the Witch House had a medical issue that she had to deal with, so she couldn't be here. That being said, do you want to start with my budget for Parks and Rec? So in terms of things that we do for the community, our priorities are very consistently always making sure that anybody and everybody has access to what we do. We do charge fees sometimes for programming, but we work with any and all community members who may not be able to afford it. In particular for the pool this year, we worked closely with Laura Assad, who works for the school department, and homeless families and anyone that could not afford to come to the pool or to pay the pass. And we made sure that we took care of anybody that Laura would bring forward to us. So we had a great partnership with them as well. And then not only for the pool, but any of the programs that we might run, Kathy McCarthy is always willing and able and to assist anybody who may have any kind of financial struggles to work with them. On that note, we the Friends of the Park and Rec group that I work with, our outside friends group, we have run 4 golf tournaments now. We had our 4th annual, and also a shout out to Paul and his crew for helping us with that. But we were able to raise, and we've gone up every year that we've run it, and that's from community donations, auction items, tea sponsors. So we have a lot of people in the community that care about Parks and Rec and what we provide for our kids. And I'm pleased to say that this year, the Friends Group raised over $12,000 for programming for the city. So this is our donation account, so it's above and beyond what we might have in our budget, but we're looking forward to offering things like a free Red Sox, like get a bus, free Red Sox tickets, have some kind of a contest. We've done things like that in the past where we can do more for our community for free, which is what we're always trying to do, to make sure everyone has access to the fun that we have. So that's a little bit of the overview from the Parks and Rec budget. This summer, we are going to continue to do the free summer park programs over, I think it's 9 playgrounds now that we're doing throughout the city. We've done all of the playgrounds at some point and kind of figured out which ones seem to have the most success. It's not limited to only people in that neighborhood. We take kids from all over. It's drop-in, so we'll be at each of these playgrounds throughout the city 2 to 3 times throughout the summer. Did you want me to go into budget line items, or?
If there's something you'd like to highlight, you're welcome to. Otherwise, if you want to wait and see what the council asks questions about, you can do that too.
Okay. Oh, I forgot. And I have Ray Jonan here as our certified pool operator to be willing and able to help us in assisting with questions you may have on pool.
Well, Ray's going to answer a lot of questions tonight. Don't you worry. Is there anything you wanted to highlight specifically in your line items, or do you want to just see what comes?
I don't think so. I think most of the asks in talking to Anna were not, they weren't reaches, they were necessities. But I'd be glad to answer any specific questions you might have.
Councilor Hapworth?
Much of it was the pool maintenance, some of the pool maintenance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Trish, for all you do. I think just looking at these accomplishments, I think especially for those of us who don't have backyards, so much of this touches our families, and we just appreciate everything that you do. I think just to highlight a couple things here, the superseding and aerating on the McGrath Field was much appreciated by all the parents and all the kids this year. The free summer programs is something that we have taken advantage of as our family. Just as something to do with our kids in between summer camps. My son has even begrudgingly done the outdoor yoga that you've done there. So just appreciate all of that. And even the Valentines, I received a Veterans Valentine this year, which is unexpected and incredible. And I guess I have to mention the Santa, just the incredible Santa that we had come here to the Salem Common. We just all appreciate that. The question I had, I guess, was around the Mac Park house. Have we located a family or someone to be a caretaker there, and what does that look like right now?
So there was a little delay because I think with the turnover, we had an opportunity to kind of go in and really look at what upgrades needed to happen in that house. So we upgraded the alarm system, put in new windows. We got the house de-leaded for paints, made some electrical upgrades. So while that work was happening, and then we were able to have it, I forget what the word is, re-permitted or re-inspected by building and health. Actually, I got an email today, but we were planning on mid-June. So right now it's just a matter of getting the lease out from Anthony's office in Beth Renard. So we were on email today about that.
So you're saying mid-June, you mean that we would have a caretaker there by mid-June? There is somebody lined up for that?
Yes. Yeah, we already went through the whole RFP process, but then we ran into some of the issues with making sure that we were meeting all the codes before we could let them move in.
And then the Forest River one as well. There's I think a caretaker.
Mhm.
There. Has that been filled?
Yep, that is still in its lease now. So I think that goes out to RFP next year.
Thank you.
Sure. They're also, the new caretakers at Mac Park are going to be contributing and volunteering. We put into the process at the community gardens there as well. So that will be a kind of a new aspect to what they do. And they also assist with opening and stocking the bathrooms there at Mac Park.
Let the record show we've been joined by Councilor Dominguez. Councilor Marcillo, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Trish, for the recap of your work. Couple questions about the pool. Do you know the number of scholarships that you gave for the pool?
I don't know it offhand, but every single person that applied got a scholarship. I can get back to you. I think we had it in different areas. We had some at the high school, we had some through Kathy, and some were not full, some were partial. So I don't have the exact number.
I would like to see that in your data from year to year, the number of passes that you've sold and
Oh, I
the
have
number
that
of
in-
scholarship. How many passes?
So, well, I have the total.
Oh, you have the
for-
pool passes sold. Pooch passes, sorry.
No, that was Pooch passes. Yeah, I have a total number amount that we not raised, but we took in for season passes, $34,089. And
That was pool passes?
that was for pool passes. Yep.
So I would underscore the fact that we should have that data for the number that are sold and including the number of discounted or scholarship. I think that's a really important number to know from year to year.
Sure.
Do you think that that there's enough outreach for people who might be in need of financial assistance?
I mean, I think we always do the best we can. The more the word spreads, the better, obviously. I think having Laura at the schools, working with those homeless families really was helpful. We put disclaimers and stuff all over our website for if you need financial assistance, please contact us. We are in contact with the schools. So I think we do a pretty good job of it. If there's anything else you think we need to do, I'd be glad to keep moving and we
Yeah. I guess the numbers are important, so if you could send that out to everybody, that would be
Sure.
informative. And who sets a schedule for activities at the pool? Is it the city or the Y?
So it's the Y, but in conjunction with feedback that we get. So we meet with the Y. They run the day-to-day operations in terms of the schedule. We have conversations with them. We had a meeting with any feedback that we got. Sometimes they get calls, sometimes we get calls. So we kind of compile all of the information and then talk about it before she makes the schedule for the following summer. And last summer was the first one in a while, so.
Okay. And then the beach lifeguards. Is that only at Winter Island?
Yes, only at Waikiki.
And so the figure that you gave for beach lifeguards, is that for so that's 7 days a week, I believe, that they're.
7 days a week, yeah,
Okay.
for the summer.
Have we ever thought about adding another beach only on the weekends, maybe, like down at the Willows?
We could, I guess I've always been kind of told to try to keep the budget level funded whenever possible. I think Waikiki is definitely the highest demand.
Yeah.
I can ask for more money and do that easily.
I mean, if you had a number for
Yeah.
staffing it on weekends or Monday through Sunday, I don't know. I think it's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because there are certainly people down there swimming and I know we can't have somebody at every beach in the city, but we are a coastal city.
Yeah.
Seems like we could have more than one, but
So right now we have, we're in contract with the Y with those specifics already in it, but I'm sure those can be adjusted,
I mean, even looking towards next year,
Yep.
just something to think about if it makes sense. I don't know. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I might ask one follow-up question about that last line of questioning, which is, do you have a sense of how much success the Y is having in filling those slots for the lifeguard needs? I know there's been some struggles in years past.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had to increase the hourly pay, which I think pretty much everyone in this, definitely in our state and beyond, I'm sure had to. So that did increase the cost, but she seemed to be able to do it and find it and be able to fully staff our pool. So I guess the only issue is if somebody called in sick, but they always had an extra person to rotate in if someone were to call in sick. They have a lifeguard supervisor and they have the head lifeguard who isn't lifeguarding, but kind of supervising that can fill in if someone were to call in sick. So according to Charity at the YMCA, they were able to do it, not without us increasing that hourly. That hourly salary.
Counselor Stott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Following up, one more pool question for you. And I think you may have mentioned this. Are they doing the free swim lessons again this year?
Yeah, well, I don't think the new schedule is posted yet, but we talked about it with Charity. Always successful, always something that we want to do and continue to do. So yes, and I did address the adult one that we had talked about last year. So I think she has opportunities for both.
Some sign up for those. I will say those lifeguards are on point down at the pool. so
Yeah,
they-
yeah.
I had 3 part questions and then 1 random question. My part questions, along with the Mac Park house, my other question was the Furlong Park parking remediation and parking lot. So I know that we allocated money last year. Obviously, it didn't move forward because the project that the land is on hasn't moved forward yet, but it is planning to move forward this summer. So I just want to make sure that there's coordination there and a plan, I guess, for us to move forward with the lot, if that's been discussed at all.
I have not heard that from anyone yet, so not sure. I would get that information from either Beth or someone from planning.
Which piece of information would you need for, like, just that the development project is moving forward, or?
Yeah, specific to the parking lot for Furlong. I know that in the public meetings, we discussed about being able to use some of those parking spots for Little League or for use of the field and things like that.
Yeah, I'm just afraid that like the conversation never really got any further. And I know that the development project is planning to start this summer. So I want to make sure that we're not like stuck in limbo for 2 years as we then like figure out what we're
Yeah.
going to do with it. So
Yeah.
knowing that the money's been allocated, that now the project is finally getting ready to move forward, I'd love to have some sort of at least plan. Who knows when, like knock on wood, it actually starts to move forward this year. But at least when it does, we'll have a plan ready to move forward with it.
So we can get you an update on that. Beth Renard does have an update.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. I'll follow up with her. My second part question is the Winter Island Playgrounds. Has it been funded? Like, I feel like I've heard 2 different things,
Yeah.
that the replacement's been funded or we're waiting for funds.
Yeah, no, we have the money,
Mhm.
we just don't have the equipment. So it was ordered last January. They told us hopefully we would have it late spring, early summer, and everything is still back ordered and they are telling me now early September. I know.
Painful one. Is it a
Painful.
similar setup to what was there? Because that was a
No.
large.
Yeah, no, it's a little different. We did some separate pieces. One thing that I'm learning in my time here too is, well, always pieces are changing, more exciting pieces, but sometimes it's better to get separate pieces than the one big. There is a big one in the middle that's similar, but we did spread out some other pieces that have their own spot because then financially it makes more sense. Like if something breaks on these one big pieces, the answer is always, we don't have that. We don't make that anymore. You have to buy a whole new piece. So this is a little mix of both.
Great. Looking forward to that. And then I saw there was a note in the goals about the park ranger program to expand that. Is that program in process?
Yeah, it's a little challenging to find people that want to do this. I don't know if people were burnt out from the COVID Ranger kind of things, but we're getting it advertised, and that is something actually that is being delegated to Tiffany at Forest River. So we're going to try to generate as many applications we can, interview and get them rolling. Last year we were able to cover the Willows and Forest River.
Okay, so that's more, I guess, high activity area park rangers than the
Mhm.
neighborhood park ranger programs that have been talked about in the past. I feel
Um,
like this was probably pre-COVID discussion of like local park ambassadors probably would be more of a.
Oh, yeah, okay, some more ambassadors. Yeah, I mean, right now, I just still work with the neighborhood groups, trying to target one contact person who can kind of take feedback from their neighborhood, their community to share with me. But I wouldn't say it's perfected or, I guess that it turns over.
And then my last question was about the Pooch Pass and the dog park. So the dog park is in Ward 6 off of Commercial Street. And I think it needs some love. So I'm curious about the Pooch Pass, and that's different than the dog license, right? It's different revenue. Where does that revenue go? Who allocates it? What is, because like they need like plastic pools for water and things like that.
Yeah, so it stays in its own account. And then if I were to need to purchase anything, I come to city council similar to the receipts reserve funds, and I'm able to just say, here's what we're purchasing. We've definitely done some irrigation work, some water work, some piping. You know, I'm having the same issue in my own backyard. The problem is you just can't keep grass there. And we've looked into, you know, I mean, my dream would to have like actually like fake grass there, right? But that floods in some of the big storms. So it doesn't make sense to invest that kind of money in it. But I do have to rejuvenate the dog park board. I've been also trying to do that, and that's one of my goals. A lot of the dog park board members were older, kind of retired, went away. Many of them weren't even from Salem. So since I'm on TV, anyone who's interested in getting involved in the dog park, please reach out to me.
I do know there are a few names, like it's kind of, there's an online group
Yes.
and conversation has been back up of like, who is the board and how can I join? So we can
Yeah,
pass
please,
these on if you have.
please send them to me.
Okay.
Yes.
And then a similar concept, are there any conversations or thoughts about a dog pass park in other parts of the city, i.e. Forest River, which I love, but I always go there and there are always dogs off leash and I don't like that part.
Yeah.
So it
I
seems like
know.
an opportunity for maybe a section of a area of a dog park.
Yeah, it comes up once in a while in different areas. The feedback is very mixed. It's really hard to get a pure yes. We do get complaints of dogs off leash. When I get the complaints, we talk to the police department and Officer Famiko, and he kind of focuses on the areas that might be having some issues. We did open up the beaches in the off season for the beaches to be allowed for the dogs to go off leash on the beaches until I think it's April 1st. So I think that helped, but right now there's no plans for another dog park in another park in the city.
Thank you.
Sure.
Finance Department.
Counselor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. Thanks for everything you do. I'm going to start with someone reached out to me and wanted to thank you and Mr. Joden for the good work on Gagne Park. Looking
Oh.
forward to seeing how that progresses, and especially as it can be a resource for the Carlton School. I'm going to go start with Forest River. Want to just say Tiffany's done a terrific job being interactive with residents. Do you have any sense of how the event planning's going?
Yeah, I think I don't think we're making a ton of money on the function room yet. But I think what I have is somewhere around, sorry. Oh, these reports are challenging. And I have like 1,400 here. I would say like 3,000 approximately that we've raised to put, that are on the reports for function room. So I think there needs to be still more work done with more marketing. Anyone who does have their event there, they're obvious. I don't know if you guys have all seen it, but the function room is beautiful, beautiful ocean views. So, hey, again, we're on TV. I think I would like to see a little bit more marketing, and I'm going to work with Tiffany on marketing with even small businesses, luncheons, things like that, even during the work week that could happen. But any of our community members who have used it are thrilled with it. It's a little challenge because it's not very big. So, but we knew that going in. We knew that the community members in that ward did not want to have weddings every weekend. I mean, we most certainly could have made it bigger and made more revenue, but it is a really intimate, nice, beautiful place to have some of the smaller events. And I think as word gets out, for sure, it is spreading.
The parking, I've just had a lot of inquiries. I know we've communicated with that in the passes, as Councilor Mertzville said. And so because now it's all passport, I guess, or they can get their pass,
Yeah.
which I got, but do you have any sense of like people who may have been buying the pass just for Forest River? The $25 pass? I guess they just, because any pass covers all the.
Pass covers it covers Forest River, Winter Island, Kernwood Marina, and then that new section of the Willows. So if people are frequenting the parks, it's definitely worth it to do that. If they're only going once in a while, it's 50 cents an hour.
So part of my responsibility as the ward counselor is to inspect the pool, and I think it's spectacular. I think Ray and his team, Katie, do a great job keeping the water quality. As the other counselors said, I was very concerned because there's been a lot of studies and globe articles about how facilities haven't been able to have the right quantity of lifeguards. So it sounds like you're in a decent place.
Mhm.
That's good. I know we've exchanged emails or whatever. I do get a lot of calls about the trees that are missing either because of the disease to the ash trees or
Yeah.
other reasons. And it sounds like you have a plan to replant a bunch of trees.
Yeah, kind of working with DPS on that. It is really, really sad. I mean, this borer ash bee has really done a job on this area. And it's sad to see these mature trees that they're dying.
There's 20 all in one area. Forest River.
West River got hit pretty hard, yeah.
So I think that would be great to bring some of that back because we're missing a little bit of the canopy. And I know
Absolutely.
families come and play being under the trees. It's too bad that Elizabeth isn't here. Do you have any update on Pioneer Village at this point?
On the project itself you're talking about? Sure. So we meet
I do
very,
just want to point out very quickly that it has its own section that we're going to get to. There's like a whole
Oh,
table for Pioneer.
when we get to that budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Armor Cove Phase 2. Armor Cove Park Phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
Super appreciate 11 out of the 12 improvements. I know a lot of people in the area, whether they're from Pioneer Terrace or the people living in other parts of the neighborhood, really appreciate the evolution of the park. But I do want to express a concern I brought up with planning, and that is I don't feel like the communication with the neighborhood was what it should be regarding the removal of the baseball field. I think it's a cultural thing, and I know it's more money, but I feel like there are people who don't feel like they were heard enough, and just expressing that if it hasn't gone through the full process, I'm just personally hoping that it would be able to be revisited because I think there's a lot of people in the neighborhood and relatives of people in the neighborhood who really feel that without that baseball field that something would be lacking that should be there.
Okay, I'm not sure how to answer that other than there was a 2-year process with a lot of meetings. This was definitely not an easy decision because a lot of times the public input gives you a clear direction of where to go. In terms of the public opinion, it was very close. for a lot of reasons, was presented by Naomi, I believe, who ran all of those, or her company ran all of those meetings. And my commission voted on it. And they do have the jurisdiction to do that at the final say, sort of, but they go by community input, they go by these studies. It is unfortunately a situation that nobody ever feels good when it's like that close, right? When the opinions are that close. But secondly, the location, because of coastal waters and flooding in the future, that was part of the decision as well. So I'm not sure that it can be revisited where we put 2 years into it and it was already voted on from the Park and Rec Commission.
I'm just expressing my concern because, this isn't just this process, but sometimes we generally feel like if we send out a survey or we have a meeting at the Community Life Center or something, that because of the people in the room that we're representative enough. And I'm not sure that's always true. And I'm just, my concern is that I do feel like it's not that close in the neighborhood as far as the feeling. And I'm just expressing myself. I mean, I feel like these are decisions that can always be changed, just like traffic calming, we can move the line or pull or whatever. I do believe that this may be something that may be worth, if it's already going through with the phase 2, that it may be something that might be worth considering, just throwing that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilor Dominguez, I will get to you. I do want to sort of add to the comment around that field in particular that I think I'm grateful for the recent work at the baseball field at Gallows Hill Park. I think a lot of that conversation involved the sense of we're going to balance the loss of the field here by making sure we have a usable field there. So there's one for the city. We had some flooding problems that had happened up at Gallows Hill Park. And so for a time we had no field. So I think there's a citywide issue that came into play in addition to a neighborhood issue. So I'm grateful to see that that work proceeded. I'm hoping, knock on wood, we'll be in good shape and we won't have any flooding issues down there going forward. I do want to ask though about the adjacent park, Mansell Field, which I think a lot of the neighborhood thinks if it is one park. I've been in communication with Tom Devine. There's a remediation plan in place finally to get it cleaned up, get the contamination removed, get the grass reopened. I'm curious if you have been in conversation with planning in terms of what happens to that space after the remediation is done. Are there plans to sort of bring it into better use than just sort of the open field that it had been in the past? Has that conversation started?
I mean, yes, I've been involved in that conversation with Tom along the way, with also how it affects the field, the design of the new area. So I haven't heard anything other than we can go back to scheduling that field once the remediation is done. So that field was used in the past, open space by cheerleaders at the high school, like flag football, like some of the smaller kids games can be, it's nice to have open space, which was also part of the decision of Parma Cove. Is the big desire is to have open space that can be utilized for a lot of different things, not strictly to baseball or softball. Just by the number of pure open spaces that we have for multi-use programming. So,
Yeah, totally agreed. And I mean, you said the word multi-use programming. It would be wonderful to see that space return to a level field. Up till now, it's been sort of hilly and slopey and had the cops in the middle of it. It would be great to see that turn into a true multi-use field if we're going to dig it all out, have a nice level path that can be used for soccer and all the other uses we have in the city.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
That is the plan, and circulate the Park and Rec Commission did approve the final design for what the restored field is going to look like. Largely the same as the old field. I think some more paths and benches, but same thing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Chair McLean, being a member of the committee. Thank you. Good to see you, Trish, once again. I know how active are you, and department is one of the most active across the city. I had a couple of questions on some of the topic that I see here on your goals. The first one I have is you're talking about increase the level of engagement with Salem residents. My question in that regard is what actions are being taken to do that? And I know that you had the new letters that you send mainly every month, giving people the options or all of the events that we have. But I just want to hear what are the actions that you take it. I know you use the technology, and just to inform the general public what is the actions and what do you envision to see in the new year budget in regard to those actions that you're taking to engage more of the population of Salem.
So you're referring to which goal did you say?
Increase the level of engagement with Salem residents as on page 732 on top. Right on top. Creation goal 732.
Sorry, I'm just looking for the pages here. Here we go. Yep.
Not the same number.
Yep. So the mayor's goals. Yeah. So again, open to feedback, and we constantly do that. So we do our newsletter, we do our Facebook page, we do all kinds of flyers that are go to all the schools, and they do get translated also to Spanish for the Spanish-speaking populations to go home with the kids. We're always taking feedback from the community, whether it's positive or negative. My attitude has always been, try anything you want. We can try any program we want, right? I mean, if 3 people enjoy it, it's a success. So, financially, again, I always tell my people, don't worry about it, because we do this fundraising to be able to cover, any shortfalls that might happen in the budget. So, we're constantly taking feedback from the community of what is successful, what they'd like to see. We actually started a ukulele class, right? So I would think, innocently, I was like, ooh, ukulele, I don't know how many people that's going to get. It was literally sold out and had a waiting list. And it's like 24 people or something that are coming regularly to the Community Life Center for ukulele classes. So I always say we're open to try and do anything that the community wants us to try. And we come up with our own, ideas. A lot of it is also just people who have interest in the community. So if anyone has an interest, quilting, sewing, arts and crafts, painting, paint and sip, whatever people's talents are, we can hire you to help us, run these events and these classes. So, we do depend on our own community to help us with that and get involved in that as well.
I know you work with so many organizations locally, collaborating on many, many actions. Are you open to set more organizations to be open with working with you? I know that we have many other organizations that I don't see in the list, and I know you probably be reaching out to them, but are you open to as a department?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, anyone that wants to collaborate. I mean, we collaborate with Salem State. Anybody who basically contacts us and gives us thoughts or ideas, we welcome all ideas and can try any kind of programming.
Are you also aware of any increase on any other population other than the Latino populations that we have in Salem? I mentioned that because I've seen a growing population from Brazil. They don't speak either English or Spanish. Are you are looking forward to in the future to adjust in any event the languages? I know for a fact I use Spanish as well as English, the most speaking language that we have in Salem. But are you open to reach out to other communities in that regard?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Other communities that don't speak English or Spanish, is that?
Yeah.
Sure. I'm not really sure how we would go about that, other than we do translate right now in Spanish. I don't know that we have anybody on staff or anyone that could speak, might speak other languages. From what I understand, a lot of it can be comprehended through Spanish, but I mean, there's so many languages. I'm not. Google Translate is my answer to that, right? Like if someone comes in and we can't communicate, we can try Google Translate and things like that to help us increase that communication.
On,
Sorry, to respond. So our DEI director is putting together a resource guide for interpretive and translation services in Spanish and Portuguese and other languages, and we'll make that available to every department to have.
That's good. I want to go to the Point Neighborhood program that we have over there. How effective it has been year to year? Do you think we've seen some progress? Can you elaborate a little bit more on how the program is getting into the community? People using the program?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are constantly trying to engage. I think, by most certainly doing programming constantly at Mary Jane Lee, we've always included that park pretty much 100% in any of our programming to make sure that we're a presence there, that they get to know us. I know that the Point building has gone through a little transition with the Plummer home that's now going to be involved with the school and the kind of the engagement of the community through the school. And we partner with the school for any of our activities as well. So I only see that getting better with that change in the Point building at Parma Cove Park.
And my final question, and I apologize to take it so long. I usually ask this question to every one of the department. Are you satisfied? Are you okay with the budget this year presented? Do you have enough to cover what you envision to see based on the projection that you made?
I mean, yeah, I think we all have this challenge of working together as a city. I'm sure every department head wants more, but I think that, Anna, the mayor's office, all of our department heads really work together to prioritize what our needs, what our wants are. We always have like the big wish list. And reality is reality. Sometimes we have to cut here and there, but we always make do. And again, I'm so grateful and thankful to my friends group for the work that they put into this golf tournament. That really does allow us to not ever have our backs against the wall, especially with programming in our community and to service the kids. But then when I really need something, I just come back to you guys in the middle of the year. Hey, we're short on this.
I'm
So,
pretty glad to hear that, and thank you so much for what you're doing once again. And I, like I say, firsthand know the work that you do. So thank you so much.
thank you, Domingo.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean, and thank you to you and your department for all the all the fun you bring to Salem. And I wanted to ask, in regards to your park programs, kind of a follow up to Councilor Dominguez. Will you be collaborating with the Salem Meet and Eats, the community meals again? It was just in Mary Jane Lee Park. As you know, I had done that craft table several
Yeah, yeah.
times. It's tremendous fun. And to speak to the point about the collaborative efforts, it's just also served a great purpose of, someone comes there because they heard a park event is going on, then they learn about the community meals or vice versa.
Yep.
So it's just also a great resource for, for getting the word out. And I'll commend too your the projects and the crafts and the things going on. It was great because there weren't any language barriers because anybody could just enjoy them. So I just wanted to speak to that point. But yes, will you be collaborating with the community meals? Will that be going on?
Yes, absolutely. Really, it's an awesome thing to be able to bring to our city. And I think with all the struggles of families who can't always put food on the table, it is an amazing, amazing thing that we can do for our community. And I absolutely, we want to make sure we can service as many as possible in our collaboration. So we talk to them about programming and where's what and what's the most popular, and the Y kids, they're always around at Forest River, so that's always a really busy spot as well. So they really do a good job of kind of spreading that throughout the city and trying to get as many meals out there as possible.
Thank you.
Counselor Prosnowski.
Thank you, Chair McLean. Not being a member of the committee, appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Trish, for coming in and taking the hot seat. It was warmed up for you by a few other people before you, but we're trying to be nice over here. While we're on the parks, a few questions on some of the parks. First of all, I'd like to back up with Councilor Cohen was saying about his concern about the softball field down at Farmers Cove Park. We attended a meeting. I think Councilor Dominguez was also there. Lucy Corchado and several other members of the leadership coalition. It was a very aggressive meeting that was, they seemed to be surprised that that a final decision had been made to exclude the softball field, because they were talking about how they wanted to have leagues play over there, softball leagues play, that it's part of it's one of the neighborhoods. That and basketball are very popular over there, and there are a lot of people that want to be able to use the softball field and run a league out of there. I know there was some disconnect with how the information was given out or not given out over there, but when the word got out that it wasn't going to happen, whatever communication pipeline was used then was pretty effective. I think maybe before, if you want to revisit it, my suggestion would be to talk to Lucy Corchado and some of the other Latino leadership and try to find out whether or not that's still the way they feel, because I think they were very forthright coming that they very, very much wanted to see that softball field, and they were kind of surprised that it was taken away.
Yeah, I guess this is not a new thought that you're bringing to me, that we've had lots of discussions. And like I said, it was a 2-year process before the final decision was made. So I'm not sure how to revisit with the commission. It was not an easy decision. People had their opinions strongly on both ways. A lot of it was also the desires of the people that live in the neighborhood. In making that decision for one league versus an entire neighborhood of participation made it challenging. I'm not going to lie, it was not easy, and it was a very very close decision. Other things I said that also factored in parking or lack of parking, resiliency with the climate, the water, the money to keep up the field for an outside league. What we're providing a much better field there with parking. The leagues also told us that they didn't want to play if there was no lights, and it was already determined that it wasn't the right place for lights. If you remember that, the salt in the sea and that the whole light actually collapsed and fell because it rots from underneath because of that location. So for safety reasons, they also said we unfortunately, we don't have lights at Gallows either, but that was not the right place to have lights.
Okay, it's just that they seem to be impressing on us that they weren't all informed, that it was not, the communication level wasn't out there like it should have been. And it would have been a different outcome, maybe not. You definitely have, legitimate concerns over it, but all I'm trying to say is that as soon as they found out that it wasn't happening, boy, word spread like wildfire. So why can't it be spread like wildfire at the very beginning, so that we don't have these hurdles to have to go through now? That's all. Forest River, beautiful, beautiful pool. It's like a country club over there. I've used it a lot last year, and hopefully use it again this year. My main concern is the security over there. I know that we were supposed to get cameras. I believe part of it was through the police department and the Homeland Security Waterfront Grant. Has there been any movement on that? Have we got cameras over there? And they are also encompassing the new work that was done at the pool to be able to do. Okay.
It's all up and running. It's pretty neat. We can kind of change what areas pop up on the screen for security. I'm not 100% sure it's connected to the police if they can see it on the screen, but we can see it
Yes.
on the screen and we can save recording. So I can double check that, but
I think,
Pretty sure it is.
I think the police and the harbor master, because the grant came in through port security,
Yep,
that
yep.
they also have
have
access
to it.
access to that and recording. Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that they had been implemented. We've got the city's 400th birthday coming up pretty soon, and I know that the common is due for some fixing up, I think, because it's like the centerpiece of the city. I'm curious about the fence around the common. I know that there's money that's been allotted to fix a fence that's basically unfixable, and maybe we should be thinking about maybe earmarking that money to use in other areas of the common instead of the fence. I'm not sure how you folks are, how much you like the fence or you don't, but obviously it's very, very expensive to replace and maintain. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about either dismantling the fence, because there are many commons in the state that don't have fences around them, or putting something that was even more accurate from before there was a metal fence, there was a wooden fence. So I just hate to see, I'm not sure, it was $700,000-800,000 that is put aside to fix the fence that seems to be able to be used better elsewhere in that area, such as the entranceway. I know I was speaking with our veterans agent, Kim Emmerling. He was talking about the veterans monument over there. That needs to be upgraded. It needs to have names added to it. There may be some names on it. He said that maybe shouldn't be on there. So I know that that seems to be something that should be focused on also. So I'm not sure. Can you give us a briefing on what we're going to do with that fence?
I can try. So Salem Common is actually not designated parkland, but it's this random kind of open space that falls under a lot of different areas. So for Park and Rec, we rent we rent out the gazebo, we kind of control that, we approve the events go to the commission. Our maintenance crew obviously covers the whole city, parks and open spaces. Then we have Patty, who's involved in the historic aspect and planning. So everyone kind of has a little piece into this, but it obviously is part of the signature parks, which we have Michael Crounce working on. There's actually trees that are in the Friends of the Common who have solicited some earmarks from Joan Lovely, and we appreciate all of those earmarks and can always use more money in any project that we have. So I don't know if you want to talk about the fence. I know since I've been here, there's been capital money that really has been done through planning and historic in terms of their budget and what they organize it, they plan it, they fix it on the planning side.
So there is, I believe, there's no funding for the fence in this year's budget. This year, conversation about material, and I think the cost is because the material that's been used tends to be a hard, rather that provide the same aesthetic without having that are more easy to repair. I will say that when it comes to the common, the trees are important. The pathways need some upgrade. Talked about the memorial thing that needs to be addressed before the final phase of the bandstand is not needs to be completed before 2026. And I think that's a high priority for us as far as hitting that centennial goal. So there are a lot of needs there. And as far as the fence goes, it's not part of it this year.
We are currently working on a RFQ right now for the phase 2 of the bandstand. That's the next priority. But I definitely agree with you that we need to work on the front entrance as well.
Well, the fence is on the back burner. We're not doing anything with it. No money. There's money put aside now, and that's not being used. Anything else?
There's no money for the fence this year.
Is there money? There's no money for this year, but is there money to fix it in the bank now from previous years?
I wouldn't be able to tell you that offhand. I'd have to check on to see what's still unspent. It's a planning department.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you. Just to go back to the park programs that you're having this summer for the kids. You said that you have 3 summer park programs at 9 parks. Is that what you said?
3 hours every day from 9 to 12 at all the parks, 9 parks across the city. And the staff kind of travel throughout the city and kind of hit each park, and they'll be there 2 to 3 times at each park throughout the summer.
Do those kids get the summer meals?
Most of them do. I don't know that we go to that they're combined with every single park, but I think almost all of them do make it there.
I
the
don't know what you
summer
just
meals.
said.
I don't think that the summer meals deliver specifically to every single park.
Well, that's what I
w-
mean. If you know
we
that
would
you're
have-
having a program there,
Yeah,
you can just tell them and they'll
Yeah.
bring you meals. I was just curious if you
Yeah.
do that. I know they go to Forest River. They've always gone to Forest
Yep.
River, but
Because it's a large concentration of kids.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they usually work with us once we talk to them, and Kathy McCarthy, who is our program manager, gives them the information of where they are.
Okay.
And
Yep.
hopefully
you.
they show
Yeah.
up to all of them. I'm not sure if they go to every single one, but I think they make the effort to reach as many kids as they can.
Okay, thanks.
Seeing nothing further, I'm looking for a motion on the general administration budget for parks. Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to motion to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 481,703 and the expenditures budget in the amount of 495,249 for a grand total of 976,952.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the Park and Rec General Admin Personnel Budget in the amount of 481,703, expenditures in the amount of 495,249 for a total of 976,952, seconded by Counselor Stott. All those in favor? I see 3 hands plus my own. That matter carries. The next section we have in our books is golf. I'm going to follow our books because there's more of them.
First of all, I want to thank Paul for being here at whatever time o'clock at night it is when he gets up at about 3 to start cutting the lawn and doing the work that he does. I can never get sick of repeating and giving my staff credit, because every time we get these compliments on how great our golf course looks, how the greens are better than country clubs, and how well things are maintained there with what we have for budgets. I think all across the city, we do an amazing job, but I can't give Paul enough credit because he is the reason that we get those compliments. So I really wanted to make sure that everyone got a chance to get some FaceTime with Paul. If you had specific questions, but also just to put a name to a face on why we get so many compliments and the person behind them. So I think probably one of the main changes coming forward, I mean, with the clubhouse itself, we've looked, we're not on capital yet, but we have looked at kind of what we need to do to that clubhouse to just keep it up in the future. One of the big projects coming up is the electrical golf cart, to move to electric golf carts for sustainability and also regulations and whatnot. So that is something that we've worked with Anna about. We're going to work with the new sustainability person, and that's one of the projects that Paul will be helping head up as well. I don't know if we should we talk about the other capital that's in the golf, or do you want to wait and do the capital?
No, you're welcome to talk about it while we're discussing golf. That's true for any of the sections. Feel free to dive into the capital while we're talking about it.
So I think we talked about getting the outside stained, and I believe that was one of the capital projects that were approved as well. And then again, golf carts to be upgraded to electrical. So we did do, and Paul did a lot of research on his own and talking to other superintendents, other golf courses. We had originally talked about putting in money to actually get like a gas tank up there for them to use, similar to the one at DPW. Because our staff literally still goes and puts the gas cans in the back of the truck and does everything by hand. So we knew there needed to be a big change, and then it kind of came up, the discussion about moving to electric. So Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about the research and feedback you got from some other communities as well?
Really important to have that microphone super close to your mouth.
The electric golf carts will save, obviously, gas, fuel. Gas engines take a lot of maintenance, service maintenance on them. I'll save oil, save a lot of labor with having to gas the carts up every week. Just made sense to do it. It is going to be an expense to have the electrical charging stations put in. It's tough to get a good cost from a contractor, because you're basically asking the contractor to give you a quote. He's going to spend all his time on it. So it was difficult to get a real good quote on it. I think we're budgeting in CIP for 150, hoping it's not going to be that much. But we have to cover all our bases. It seems like every time we go out to one of these bids, it ends up costing more because they find other problems that come along with it. So hopefully we're budgeting enough to cover the whole project.
Sorry, I think also just in his research, initially being worried like about the actual carts and how long it's going to hold a charge, and the demand up there is so high. But, they've come a long way. They kind of improve every year with how long they hold their chargers. And so from the research, it seems like we're going to be able to go through a whole day and be able to just charge them overnight.
They'll last a full day working here. And also, we only do 3-year leases, so the carts will only be 3 years old. So we expense of buying, placing all the batteries in, and then expense to maintain them.
And I think the other capital was the greens mower, and then the clubhouse maintenance, which we had to prioritize. We will need a roof at some point on that building, but right now we think the roof can wait till next year. Can't ask for everything all in the same year, but really important to get the outside stained and treated. And the greens mower for primary equipment that is needed.
Counselor Cohen?
Yeah, real quickly on the EV charging equipment and the roof. The bad news is there's a lot of upfront money. The good news is EV electric vehicles are better performance and much lower maintenance. There's way less moving parts. And I think so over time, there'll be a big savings for the course. As far as the roof goes, just a suggestion, because if you put a new roof on, you put solar panels on it with optimizers, and I can help you with that, you get a level 2 EV charger built into the program, no charge. So something that's typically very expensive would be included with the solar purchase.
Counselor Varela?
Thank you, Chair McLean. I'll be a member of the committee through you to Commissioner O'Brien and Superintendent, is it Lever? Is that right? Thank you, sir. Couple of questions. I know looking through recreation, one of the mayor's goals is to look ways to deliver the city services more efficiently through the use of technology. When it comes to the actual tea schedule and booking tea times, what do you guys use right now? Do you use online software platform, or do you just do it by book?
We just do it by book. We have been looking into the past couple of years doing online. All the online ones are service contract. And for the expense to do the service contract for a 9-hole golf course, it wasn't really worth it because they take a percentage of every tee time. If it was 18-hole, we would seriously consider it. Every year we keep looking into it, and right now it just seems they take too much of a cut out of each tee time to do it for a 9-hole golf course.
Gotcha. If I may follow up, I think the reason why moving to a software-based solution for especially the golf course, it's really not only about optimizing the tee times and scheduling, but it's also about equity as well. I truly believe that, you know, when it comes to any golf course, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can book, is it 6 days out from a tee time? So historically, what I've seen, especially a lot of golf courses in California, is that what that creates is a little more of a club-like feel. If you were to, and I'm sorry we're talking about this, I know I reached out to Miss O'Brien earlier, but we didn't get an answer. So we're talking about it right now in the budget, so I apologize. So when it comes to when you do that, what you create is kind of like a segue for members and people that are familiar with it to continue to book the same tee time. If you move down to a 3-day schedule, it creates more of equity where players that are not usually in a league maybe actually be able to get a tee time. So that's the only reason I bring it up. Is there, you know, a priority to switch over to a software-based system? Only because at that point, because you guys are a municipal golf course, we can collect data on actually who is using the course at what time and where we can fit voids.
We want to do it mid-season. Every winter this comes up, so we'll be definitely visiting that in the winter. If we're going to make a change, that's the time to do it.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And then my last comment is about the actual fees. So I did get a chance to look at a couple courses, municipal courses and public courses around here. And I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but a tee time Monday through Friday for Salem is $21. And then for Saturday, Sunday, it's $37.
That's 37 sounds with a cart.
With a cart. Okay. Okay. Only reason I bring it up is, you know, do you feel like we're charging enough only looking at what's around us? And it seems like there's a deficit between Gannon and Lynn to Beverly Golf and Tennis from $12 to $20. And I just feel that it might be a missed opportunity just to increase our green fees a little bit.
We just had an increase $1 per resident and $2 per non-resident spring. We're staying on the low side right now because when you tend to increase the rates substantially too much at one time, you start getting complaints about problems in the golf course. When we finish the cart path project, which is going for permitting, supposedly this week they're applying for permitting. The plans are done for the second phase of the cart path. Once the cart paths are completed and the existing bunkers are rebuilt, because all the bunkers on the golf course are a disaster, then we'll do more of a serious increase compared to the rest of the golf courses around. Because of the golf paths, which has been our biggest complaint, and the bunkers, we don't want to have the same rate as the competing golf courses around us because we're afraid we'll lose revenue. They'll just go afraid we're going to go there. They're going to go to the other golf courses.
Okay. I mean, I'll just finish with that. It seems like, you know, there's an overwhelmingly positive feel when it comes to Salem Greens, and that I don't think changes like that are going to discourage people from continuing to golf. I just think it's about really making sure that we kind of capture what we can. And I don't think a couple dollars increase, let's say if it was $5 to $7, is not a huge reach. But with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Councilor Prosnewski. And feel free to pick that microphone up, Paul, if it's more comfortable for you.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being part of the committee. I believe I'm the only council member that's up at the golf course 2 or 3 times a week. Trying to trying to get better, and that this doesn't work. But for years now, I have seen year after year since Paul has been there. Every year there's major improvements. Every year we're surprised at something that has been done, a major change to the golf course that improves the golf course. Over the last 10 years, that golf course has changed for the better tremendously. And in my hats off to you and the small crew that you have, because I know that it's a small crew and they do a yeoman's worth of work. So I appreciate all the work that's being done. I'm glad you answered the question I had was about the cart paths, because they're halfway done, and now we're going to be getting into the other half, hopefully pretty soon, because I know that it affects the pace of play, and also it hurts the equipment that's driven on that aren't on the paths. Salem's only a 9-hole golf course. The other golf courses around us, Gannon, Inland, Peabody, Beverly, those are 18-hole golf courses. And the prices are comparable. If somebody plays 18 holes going around twice in Salem, it's comparable to Gannon or Beverly or Peabody. But Salem also has some pretty nice amenities. Peabody only has the pro shop. It doesn't have a place to really sit down and eat or have a drink, and that keeps people from going over there as often as, I mean, they'd be a lot busier, I think, if they could do what they wanted to do over there. I guess what I just wanted to say is I don't know any other place in Salem that has shown every year such improvements year after year after year, big giant steps in improvement. So hats off to you for what you do, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Counselor Stott.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in tonight, Paul, and introducing yourself and talking about the golf course. I have heard many good things about the golf course, but I've actually never even seen the golf course. So that would be my one comment. Besides, actually, my first comment will be directly related to the budget. Your revenues outweigh your expenses, and that's great. Always awesome to see, especially with the glowing reviews that you're getting. So you're obviously doing something right down there, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're keeping the fees at a reasonable level for community members to utilize. But, similar vein, what community members are utilizing it and how can we expand that community outreach? Your one comment about working with the community is the entry in the Halloween parade, which is great, but what else can we do to get members down there? I'm a parent, so my thoughts always go towards the schools. Do we have, I think Salem High plays down there for the golf team. I'm not sure. I know for myself, for my kid, I brought her to Beverly to do some golf lessons. So it would be, I don't know if there's any connection there, or even just some sort of like they literally have no idea what it's like up there. I've gone to the park hiking in the Salem woods that you have to park in the driveway back there to get to. And I've seen people with their courses, or with their bags walking in, but I'm just trying to think of ways that we can open it up more, because I understand not wanting to pour money into a software system when we're keeping costs down, but that is calling to reserve a tea time. You need to know what you're doing to do that, and you need to kind of be comfortable to do that. So it's kind of limiting in that sense. So I'm trying to think of ways that we can help expand the great resource that we have to those members of the community. Like myself, like I know about it, but I also don't know anything about it. And I think it's just a great resource. So I don't know if I'm sure you've had conversations like that, but I'd love to hear ideas, especially seeing again that your revenues are higher than your expenses. So perhaps there can be some funding put towards there for like lessons for families or children, anything like that.
We previously had a golf pro up there that gave free golf lessons. Because of his health, he had to stop doing it the past year. We have a new person there that's actually starting Saturday. I don't have his name. I don't remember his name. He's starting Saturday, giving free golf lessons. to anybody in the community. I believe, can't remember exactly what time it is. I want to say it's sometime in the afternoon. And then we do offer a really low discounted rate on students under 18 there for golf rates. I believe it's only like 300, membership's only about, I believe, $300.
And the high school golf team obviously also uses the course.
Yeah, the surrounding communities also use it too. Marblehead and Swampscott play there also. And then they have, starting, I believe it's in August, they have matches there with the high school teams.
If I may, so I will just make more of a personal comment. I think that golf is a sport that is not one that is that many are comfortable with. You know, it's not one that's super popular growing up for, you know, like kids in the neighborhood, I guess. So I would love to think of kind of outside the box to be able to open up our community more to this golf course. You know, even just like an open house, like come check us out, see what it's like up here. I did see the discounted student fees, so that's great, but like you need to know what golf is to take advantage of that. And it's like almost like we need to take a few steps back of even like what can we do to really just open. I'm a huge fan of golf. I grew up with it in my family, and I think it opens a lot of doors for a lot of people if you have this skill. You know, even just being in the business world, like it means a lot to me to be able to go on a golf course for a meeting and have that skill. And I would love to be able to open that up to more that are just not naturally comfortable with it. So if we could think of any kind of outside of the box ideas, that would be awesome.
Do some sort of advertising. We do have rental golf clubs up there, so if you've never played before, you can rent golf clubs. And we have a practice area too, a small practice area that used to be the old seventh hole, where they're giving the lessons. So you can rent clubs there anytime and use the practice area and just try it out. And we could come up with some way, I guess, to advertise that, put it on the website.
Yeah. Once we have more information on the new person that is giving the golf lessons, we can put those up. Wayne, the gentleman that had to retire, he did this basically on his own. Most golf lessons cost $100 an hour, at least 100. And we did them free twice a week, 2 hours. Anybody could just go and he was very patient with new golfers, and he just really loved the game and wanted other people to love it. And he had that attitude and way about him as he was teaching. So we can definitely get that up there and out once we have more detail of the exact times.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, Councilor McLean, and I'll be brief. I just wanted to touch on something that Councilor Stott said as far as just making it available and people that aren't normally used to golfing or scheduling a tee time at Old Salem Greens. One thing that I wanted to ask you was, and this is something that a lot of courses have done to make sure that there's an equitable piece of this and to make tee times available. Do you offer within Monday through Friday, Saturday through Sunday, within every hour, do you keep any spots open for any walk-ins to come on at any point so that it makes it available for people to actually be able to get a tee time? I know for myself, I'm more of a spontaneous person, and it's almost impossible to get a tee time. So is that something maybe going forward that you guys can implement? And I know that will create an environment that people that normally are able to actually attend, that it gives them an opportunity to actually step into the golf course.
So we have a pro shop manager up there. So my position is superintendent, basically general manager. That's something for him. And I know there are tee times left open in the morning. At least last I saw, there were some tee times left open in the morning in between the members to be filled in. Just has to be done the right way because you don't want to lose money. You want to make sure you're always filling the tee times. If we're not filling the tee sheet, we're not making money. All the golf courses since COVID are really busy. Basically, any golf course that you want to play, you're looking at, you have in the book 4 to 5 days ahead of time. Yeah, so we could consider leaving some open. We just want to make sure we're going to be able to fill them so we don't lose any money.
No, I understand that. I know with these software-based systems, there's ways to make sure that there's people that are looking to actually get into tea times. And this would be a way to make sure that you guys can actually do that, to have like a virtual waiting list where people have access throughout, during the day. So I think, going forward, I'd love for you guys to see that happen because I think that'll create a much more equitable environment for people to walk on your course.
All right, thanks.
Counselor Marcelo.
Thank you. Both of my kids took golf lessons up there when they were in grade school, I think. I think through the parks program. I think my son liked the golf cart more than the golf, but whatever. So you talked about membership. Is that the annual passes? How much is that normally?
I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't use the numbers every day because I'm not at the register. They're on the website,
Okay.
and we have different rates for resident, non-resident.
So what does that get you?
There's a whole bunch of different types of passes. There's weekday passes, full passes.
Okay.
Um,
You pay one fee for your annual
Yeah.
pass and then you just play as much as you
whichever
want?
ones you can. Yeah, some you can't play the weekends. You might actually know more about the season passes than I do.
Spend a lot of money up there. That's-
I mean, in the golf, not in the bar. No.
No. I don't know. The, the passes are broken down by resident, non-resident. There's juniors, there's for seniors. Veterans also get a break if they do book a tea time. I think they get $1 off.
Okay.
For 9 holes. So it's different. There's different types of
Is there any
passes.
kind of economic condition where you get a discount? Just curious.
I don't believe so. I don't think I've seen.
Okay. All right.
I know that Anna can talk about the revenue that comes into the golf course. She sweeps much of that to basically keep the taxes for the tax rate, so.
And then my other question was, are we charging Marblehead and Swampscott to play on our golf course?
Yes.
We are.
The high school, you mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, they do have Tedesco over there. What the heck are they doing over here? What?
They use Tedesco more than here. It's mainly matches that they're playing here. They do have, I'm not sure how much, a little bit of practice rounds there.
Okay.
And they're being charged for it.
All right, good. Good.
I'm on board with that too.
Okay. Seeing no further questions for Paul, I'll accept a motion. Counselor Hapworth.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to accept the personnel budget in the amount of $394,502. The expenditures budget in the amount of $263,220 for a grand total of $657,722.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the golf course personnel budget in the amount of $394,502, expenditures in the amount of $263,220 for a total of $657,722, seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? See 2 plus my own, that carries. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. Nice to meet you.
Go to sleep.
And next up in our book, we have the Witch House. It's unfortunate Elizabeth couldn't be here. She's a gem.
There she is. Yeah, so again, just starting off with Elizabeth and what she does for the city and how hard she works and the revenue that she generates. These guys do an amazing job. As you know, she picked up Charter Street Cemetery, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but picked up a whole other site to manage pretty much all year round. So we're really, really lucky to have her here in the city. And we have really dedicated part-time staff, seasonal staff that consistently come back for pretty little money in the big picture, and they get abused by the the visitors in October pretty bad. And somehow, they come back every year because they just really love the community that they build as a staff. And Elizabeth most certainly helps with that morale. So I think the only increases we had here are natural gas, a little bit of printing and binding, and souvenirs. Souvenirs, I feel like it never hurts to ask for more money for souvenirs because we increase the costs and sell them, and the money generated comes right back to the general fund anyway. So other than that, I think her budget is pretty simple for the Witch House. The seasonals went up, probably in almost all areas you'll see, especially in regards to her. And it is really just the demand, the amount of people that are coming in and out of all of the places, but the Witch House, and managing lines outside, and the hours and the demand for time and staff to rotate them, to keep them fresh, to be able to kind of spread it out a little bit is really important. And again, I think even since COVID, the numbers have increased immensely. So we're just finding, like many other parts and impact on the city, that used to be kind of busy in July, August, and October are now busy, pretty much 8 months a year. So, and it's also just increase in the general increases from minimum wage or people who are returning that are making more money, to make sure that we're giving them those little boosts of raises, 25 cents here or there, to just keep them coming back, which is critical.
One thing just to add that may be helpful to know for the committee is that both in the Witch House, Charter Street, and also in the golf course, that the increases that are in this year in the FY24 budget, they are afforded by increasing the amount of revenues that were generated from the Witch House, Charter Street, and golf course, increasing the amount that we would plan to sweep annually. So they're basically paid for and offset in that manner because the revenues that are being generated by these departments are sufficient enough that we were able to do that. And so the increases that you're seeing, those aren't increases that would fall to the taxpayers to afford based on what we worked out for next year.
And clarification, thank you for that. Do these increases nevertheless represent increased coverage in terms of a longer season? Are there actually more personnel? What is the actual increase in terms of administration on the ground?
Basically, I think it was just seasonal staff. For in season, we added more weeks of coverage just to cover the demand of the numbers. So I guess it's a little of both. We're generating more revenue, but we also need a little more help just to manage the crowds. We're even seeing increases in the off season, so to speak.
So they have more staff support for a longer period of the year than would have been previously.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would want to recognize Elizabeth for the work she's done, both here in the Witch House, and then later we'll talk about in Charter Street Cemetery. She has transformed some of these spaces, particularly Charter Street. And I guess each time I look at this, I think that, and you deserve much of the credit there as well for supporting Elizabeth there, is that these don't belong, in my mind, in parks and recreation. I'll say it again just for the mayor. We need an office of heritage or historic properties or whatever you would call it to do what we've done in Charter Street, the Witch House, to do that in places like Old Town Hall, Broad Street Cemetery, Howard Street Cemetery, Pioneer Village, I guess, which is also included in here. This should be its own thing. This should be its. If you look at what the amount of visitors who come and visit the Witch Museum or our tour guides, these should be the premier destinations for Salem tourists, and there should be funding allocated to this as its own department within the city, and there should be attention given to searching for grants that may be available. I just think there's a big opportunity here as a city to do what we've done in Charter Street Cemetery throughout all of our historic properties. And I hope that in future years, we'll continue to look at this as something that we could potentially invest some more money into. Thank you.
Okay, I'll accept a motion. Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 217,241, the expenditures budget in the amount of 106,980 for a grand total of 324,221.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the Witch House personnel budget in the amount of 217,241, expenditures in the amount of 106,980 for a total of 324,221. Seconded by Counselor Stott. All those in favor? I see 3 plus my own. That carries. On to Pioneer Village. I think it might be helpful knowing that this has been a robust public conversation, just to sort of have a high-level flyover of where the project is at, where it's come from, where it's headed. Then we can talk about the numbers.
Okay, so obviously this is a vision that, we've been working on since we established the Signature Parks program. This is in the project stage, so Pioneer Village itself is still running as it has at Forest River. We utilize the space on the weekends, and then the Y has its contract using the area sort of behind Pioneer Village during the week. In terms of the project itself, we have regular meetings. Actually, we have a meeting with Dominic next week to update him on everything that's going on, although I know he's aware just because it's been going on for a long time now. Historic is involved in the Historic Commission. We had a lot of meetings with them, and I'm kind of working with them on what their requests are. So it's still in the planning stages. The first phase, of course, we would like to actually get to the point of moving Pioneer Village to the lower section of the Willows, kind of where the old playground is that the Y used to use, and the old bathhouse. And then phase 2 will entail kind of more of a visitor center. To your point, it's going to continue to your point, Councilor Hapworth, it's going to continue to grow with a visitor center. But right now it's just, planning design stages, talking about what type of interpretive and programming, incorporating Native American into the new design and plan for programming. So it's not physically changing anytime in the next year for sure. But our goal is to definitely get Pioneer Village as it is moved in phase 1 by 2026. So we've been working consistently with Michael Crounce, Patty Kelleher from planning, Elizabeth herself, project manager Margaret Wood, to just keep this ball rolling with the Historic Commission right now. Our next step is actually going and engaging the Mass Historic Commission. And I think there are, going back to funding opportunities, one of the reasons we're being really, really thorough in the stage is that we hopefully can apply for lots of grants when the time comes. And that's part of like making sure we're following what we need to follow, contacting who we need to contact to make us eligible to apply for some of these grants as well down the road.
Thank you for that.
Sure. So for Pioneer Village, like I said, it's acting as it has at Forest River. We obviously know part of the reason of moving it is to get it more exposure, to get it on the trolley route. So I think down the road, that's only going to continue to grow. Again, very modest budget, and I don't think I have any changes in Pioneer Village. We went level funded completely with Pioneer Village.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. Quick question. Are there any revenues from Pioneer Village? I don't see them stated in here in the budget.
Yes, they go into the general fund, so I guess Anna would have to look it up for us.
Yeah. I can look that up and get back to you, Counselor, on the amount, but I do believe that there is a line, that if at one point was at least bringing money, I do believe there are funds that come in the general fund from Pioneer Village.
Dominguez?
Thank you, Chair McLean. Is there any cost on the relocation process for this year if the plan division move forward? Also, will you elaborate a little bit more on the benefits that the city of Salem we might get to relocate the Pioneer Village to a different location? What are the benefits beside the route of the Charlie and any other? Is any other benefits that you can share with us? And I also wanted to know that's my number 3-1. You can hold it for that. There is any line item on the budget that actually reflect what would be the increase on the budget if the relocation is complete? I mean, what is the vision is going to be increasing the budget every year based on the maintenance would be different. Everything's going to be different based on the projection that you might have if we relocate. Is it being relocated?
Yeah. So I don't have any, I don't have any hard numbers right now in terms of relocating right now with the, with the project management team that we've hired. You know, we are researching options of how to move them, move the structures, some of the structures being historic, some of them, you know, we want to, as much as possible, keep them intact. Some of them will involve kind of breaking down and kind of rebuilding, but whatever we can move intact. So we're getting estimates and figuring out how that's going to actually work. The general consensus is many of them probably can be moved by barge versus being, you know, having to go through city streets with wires because of the height of some of these buildings. So I don't have any numbers yet. It's still, again, in the beginning phases of that. In terms of the relocation, we had talked pretty consistently back from when we were applying for the Signature Park funding that the increase in revenue and the demand for what people do when they come to the city, what draws them to the city, having it located now where it is at Forest River and trying to really embrace life in the 1600s is a lot more challenging at Forest River when Forest River is really set up more as a camp. I mean, it has everything you need for a camp, especially with now this beautiful pool and the playground and the basketball courts and the beaches. So it just kind of makes sense. I don't have any projected numbers in the project, but being on the trolley route and getting that kind of exposure will no doubt increase it immensely. I mean, if you think about where Pioneer Village is now and the money that we do generate, it kind of amazes me, to be honest, every year. You know, we have had a couple events that really has helped also in September and October with like the Pumpkin Fest and things that bring in, again, something for people to do during the Halloween season. But without a doubt, just by tourism and being able to market it in the location that it's going to will be a lot easier. And we had experimented in the past with the trolley going to Pioneer Village and the trolley company did work with the city. I think this could have been my first year or maybe the year before I got here, but it didn't work. Yeah.
You mentioned in your early comments the historical commission. Are they on board on this project? I mean, they approve. I mean, everything that you mentioned. I know it's been a lot of conversation, but they have already been approved.
Yeah, so it's ongoing, right? So we are still going back to them and having back and forth conversations things that they're asking us to look into. We're coming back and presenting while we're waiting for the project to continue as well.
Where we are in the public hearings in regard to that project? Is it already done or
No, 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 no,
none?
no. We're in the concept phase of the design.
Because I hear a lot of comments on both sides in the whole community as a whole. Some in favor of relocation and some against. So I want to hear more from the communities. Thank you.
Counselor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. To you, first of all, thank you for including me in the working group. I think I field more comments daily than Councilor Presnowski hits golf balls. And, you know, sometimes the loudest people aren't always a majority. I'm really going to just base my comments on the resiliency of this project. So no matter what happens, especially if the intent is to move the village, you know, I've been down there with the, you know, in-person meetings, Barbara Warren and Coast Watch and the Historical Commission. And the buildings, you know, the structure themselves is okay, not great, but the structure that supports them, the floors are really decayed. I'm not sure, you know, where they're at this point, being able to be moved even onto a barge. But, you know, with the resiliency, I'm just expressing that to wait till 2026 to move them, I'm not sure it would be as practical, because every season that comes, they're going to deteriorate more. I don't think there's anything we can do right now to keep those floorboards from rotting, and that would affect the entire structure. So I'm just expressing that I appreciate, you know, this moving forward to some resolution as quick as possible, and also being on the working group. I know Councilor Turiel was on, and then I think Councilor McCarthy is still on it. And so just want to make sure that we stay in contact about what's going on so that we can express it to the residents.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, if we can move it before 2026, yeah, we're not waiting until 2026, right? We're just going through what we have to go through and how much is it going to cost. So yeah, I agree. And I also agree with your comments. Sometimes the most negative are the, you know, I'll just say it's challenging. Facebook is challenging. Social media is challenging. There's a lot of what the buzzword I know, but is a lot of misinformation out there. So expressing, you know, opinions on Facebook and aren't always truthful by whoever. So we're doing the best we can to get the truth out there, make sure that we're posting things as project updates happen, but it's been, you know, a little bit slow just because we're working with the Historical Commission.
Just one follow-up. Neil Brennan said, I've used this quote before, but it seems appropriate now, that it's, I'm not sure when people started having opinions about facts. And I think this is a really important project for that, because even the history of the village is not necessarily what people are announcing. And I know Councilor Presnowski has spoken to that as well. So I just want to thank you with your diligence. I know that there's been some things that you have to overcome, especially with the state historical, and appreciate what you and Patty have been doing, especially, and Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, thank you.
Counselor Presnowski.
Thank you, Chair McLean, for being a member of the committee. I don't think it's a secret that I'm not a big fan of the move, not because I'm such a big fan of Pioneer Village, but I just think that moving something that is, well, is arguably really not historic, moving it from one area to another area that has no history for nearly $1 million. And I think that was the last figure that was used on how much this would cost. It just seems to make not really good money sense. I don't know what kind of revenue that we would get out of it if it was brought over to where the Girl Scout camp and Camp Nubkeg and that part of the Willows. I'd like to see some projections that if it's going to be something that's going to make us money, then we're building something for the tourists to come see that doesn't have any historical significance, even though we are a historically significant city. I would rather see the money go into something with historical significance, such as Fort Lee, which is directly across the street from the Girl Scout camp, which has credible historic significance. It was a Civil War fort. There are pictures of it when it was all cleared out. I think that would be a draw. It would be Salem's history. People would see legitimate, credible Salem's history, not something that we built just to attract tourists, because I just don't think that's our character. I think we have enough of our own history that we can put money into instead of building something that doesn't, it just doesn't seem to fit our morals. I can tell you that the popularity of Pioneer Village has slowly grown over the last few years, probably basically because of the Hocus Pocus movie. Every year that whole area gets more and more of an attraction. More people come to that neighborhood to see the house, and they also go over to Pioneer Village because they want to see where the movie was filmed. They all want to see where Max's house was, because that was Pioneer Village was used in the filming of that. It was used in the filming of the Crucible. It was used in filming of some series done by Castle Rock. It's just an area where tourists are gravitating towards year round, and it gives them a place to park. I know they park at Forest River Park, and then they walk around the neighborhood to take a look at the movie sets, and then they leave. That's it's something that's going to be taken away. Just a thought on that, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is I just can't see us sinking money into something that has no historic value, and we have tons of historic value in this city that we could be spending the money better on. Thank you.
Council President, I know that Fort Lee is discussed in terms of the phase once there's a visitor center there, and connecting those two and putting money into that as well.
It's the first time I'm hearing of it. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Definitely come up for discussion. Again, we're not even close to that yet with the phase 2, but we absolutely would incorporate.
Just one follow-up on the revenue question to get back to Councilor Varela, and this might also be helpful for this question as well. In the current year so far, the Pioneer Village revenue that has come into the general fund is over $81,000, so it's more than offsetting the cost for the budget, I believe. Last year, we collected just under $53,000, and the year before that, just under $30,000. So there clearly has been an acceleration substantially in the amount of revenue for folks that are visiting the site. And it looks like the years prior to 21, pre-COVID, it was hovering in the high $25,000 to $29,000 range, just to give folks some context for how things have been going. We haven't prepared, I believe, projections for a different site, but look at this, Trish.
Thank you for that information, Anna. It would be interesting to see what portion of that revenue is from receipts directly for Pioneer Village, and what portion is coming from the programmatic uses that are increasing at Pioneer Village, night markets and things of that nature, which are using the space. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean. I also would just like to point out the educational potential I feel it has with the move, giving some attention to Pioneer Village, as you had mentioned, incorporating additional history, such as the Native American history. And any time, I see that as a working village, so I think it has a lot of value. I know it is nowhere near the scale of something like Sturbridge Village or something, but I always remember as a kid going there and how valuable it was. And I think there was a lot to learn and experience. And I think the move and giving it attention, as you said, the structures need attention, and there'll be more access to many more people. I think for school groups, and I think there would be a lot of potential in education, investing in this and the move. Thank you.
Seeing nothing further, I'll take a motion. Counselor Epworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the expenditures budget in the amount of $26,900.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the Pioneer Village expenditures budget in the amount of $26,900, seconded by Counselor Stott. All those in favor? I see 3 plus my own. That matter carries. On to Winter Island.
Thanks, everybody. So same deal. Again, I wanted you to have some FaceTime with some of the managers of our critical sites here in the city. So Dave Gilbert does a great job of managing Winter Island, managing the staff. It's none of this is easy. It's a ton of hours. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of juggling, to say the least. So Dave, how long have you been here now? 13th. So I again thank Dave for all that he manages and handles there with his staff and with keeping up with everything that the community demands throughout the year. Dave, do you want to add about yourself and we did, you can talk about Reserve America. I mean, I know we're like in our 3rd year now of that.
Reserve America is a great program.
You've got to bring that microphone a little closer, please.
Okay.
You can pick it up.
The Reserve America was a necessity for us. When I started back in 2011, the way we were doing it at the time, what I walked into was just unmanageable. Park was starting to grow, the camping industry was building, and we were, one of my early memories was we'd start taking reservations on Monday after New Year's Day. So people would be lined up outside the building. People would drive from all over, not just Salem, to get their certain site or that they wanted. We were receiving faxes at the time, emails, phone calls. It was just unmanageable. So Reserve America does have its faults, but it's something that's worked for us. People are used to it. Every campground in Massachusetts, all the DCR sites use Reserve America. Now, they have the benefit of being so much larger than us that folks can call in their reservation. For us, it's online only. People are used to it now. It's like Trish said, it's not our first year. We've been using it for a while. And it's worked very well for us. And in fact, one thing I like about it is it generates reports for you. So here's a little fun fact for you. We have 44 sites. Now that includes 28 RV sites, 15 tent sites, and a group camping area, which we call the Igloo. Is it my thing? Somebody came up with that. It probably goes back to the Coast Guard years. But so we'll say we have 44 sites that they recognize. Out of those 44 sites, for the period that were open from May 20th, this year was the 22nd, so 3rd week or so in May, it's always the Monday before Memorial Day weekend, until Halloween, which November 1st we closed, our occupancy rate was 95.69%. Who can touch that? I'm happy to report that TripAdvisor recognized us again as the #1 campground in Salem. But that 96%, when you travel down there, looks empty sometimes, that's because folks check out at 11 a.m. We have a new group coming in at 1 p.m. That's check-in time. So it doesn't always look full, but it's just that period of time between 11, or sometimes people leave at the crack of dawn and they're on their way to Acadia National Park, what have you, or the Cape. Not many campgrounds in the area, this part of the state, a lot on the Cape, a lot in Western Mass, but not so much around here. So grateful for the job, and I've enjoyed it. It's a lot of work. Like Trish said, when I started, somebody in one of the city employees told me it was a grind. So what's kind of motivated me was just trying to embrace the grind. That's been my motivating force, you know. So far, it's worked. So I think our asks this year are pretty necessity style,
modest, yeah.
necessity type. Not any great asks.
I think we had increases just with gas and oil and projections based on what we've paid for bills this year, a little bit, printing and binding, just with the inflation costs. Just, again, going off actual bills that we are paying now, getting estimates for the future and office supplies a little bit. Yeah, and the typical, generic kind of seasonal answer is yes, we have seasonal employees, cost of living, the minimum wage, and then people who have been with us for a while has to get that little bump as well. So as Dave said, there was nothing that we asked that wasn't pretty much needed in order to maintain staff there and pay our bills.
One thing, people maybe they realize or maybe they don't. We on the weekends we open at 6 a.m. The gate opens at 6 a.m. for guests. On weekdays at 7 a.m. Gate comes down at 10 p.m. So the park kind of transitions from a public park / campground to campground at 10 p.m. to give the guests a chance to have some quiet time. It also gives us a chance to clear the park and clear all the boat trailers and serves multiple purposes. There's no couple different venues, which generate a lot of money and fully booked pretty much all summer long on the weekends. Does anybody have any questions on this? Anybody not that familiar with the park?
Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Councilor Chair McLean. Quick question. The numbers you mentioned right here on the ticket sold for residents was for vehicle was 2,364. That was from May to November 2022. Do you projecting to have an increase this year, or you seeing the numbers quite different or equal?
Right. So last year doesn't list the revenue that was generated last year, but I can give you that. For some reason, I omitted that. But last year,
Over $388,000.
to answer you, yes, it's always our goal. I mean, it's not stated in the mission statement. We're trying to generate money, but yeah, we are. We're trying. Our operating costs. We hope that they don't exceed our revenue. Well, that's not because we do it because people enjoy it. And people come from all over, and sometimes people, we make it affordable. It's a lot of things. The camping's at a reasonable rate. We've done comparisons and things. I think we're right in the ballpark of other, as few as they are, giving people an opportunity. Really, it probably comes through, and it's really its own average. Get a lot of folks come back from that. Probably right, and they want to know more about us. So we don't advertise so much. A lot of it works.
If you do some advertisement on the utilization of the site for local people, Do you think that might increase?
Advertising it for local people?
Yeah, for to utilize the facilities
Yep.
as a group. You might advertise that. Do you think that's going to be an increase on the use of the park of the site?
Like I said, I think a lot of it's word of mouth, or people attend an event that somebody's having down there, then they'll come to us and say, we attended so-and-so's event, we enjoyed it. Let's check your availability and see. Um, we don't, um, we don't really do outside. We don't market it. It's not new. It's not like the function hall at a new venue, which is beautiful at Forest River. We've been doing this a while down there. A lot of people know that. And, if I don't have can't accommodate somebody, I'll forward them over to Tiffany and see if she has a date available for them. If I answered your question.
Yeah, we did put a lot of work into the function room upgrades. It's beautiful there as well. We made it more accessible in the past couple years. We have the decking. So it is a beautiful space. It's a little bit bigger than the function room at Forest River, so it can kind of accommodate a larger group. And then I do have both all Dave, Elizabeth, and Paul, pretty much yearly compare golf course revenue, tee times, how much it costs, carts, in Dave's case, function rooms. Like I will yearly ask them to kind of compare where are we at, and when the time comes for the commission, usually in the winter, they come and present to the commission to increase prices, which I know Paul mentioned, and we did for Winter Island as well. And I do think Reserve America gave. I don't think the people of Salem need advertisement. They know about Winter Island, but Reserve America maybe did give us a little more exposure outside of Salem. But and the function room is year round as well.
Very glad to see that you ADA compliance is almost finishing and will be done by the fall 2023.
Yeah, for the
That-
function room.
That's great. And can you go over? I know last year, no, 2 years before COVID, I think they have something in the beach where people with disability can come to the beach, and that's something that you planning to keep.
Yes, yeah. So for the Willows, Dead Horse Beach, we have the rollout mat that goes out after they do the beach cleaning. I actually just talked to Katie recently at DPW where they just did the beach cleaning. Now is the time to roll out that mat, kind of secure it in that. At that location, people can wheel wheelchairs, strollers, little wagons with all of their stuff right to the high tide line. So sometimes you look at it when it's low tide and it's like, well, the beach mat is so far away, but you can only put it up to the high tide line because otherwise it would wash away. In Dave's case, we had a gentleman who had donated a chair that has the big wheels that kind of blow up and that can really go through the sand. So that's a little bit of a different thing there. And I know Dave and I talk every year about getting exposure for that and making sure people are aware that that's there. And last year we moved it and put a sign so it's right there at the gatehouse, reminding people that it's there for use.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. Through you to Ms. O'Brien and Mr. Gilbert, thank you for all you do. Happy to hear the data you have on everything with Stay America. Question concerning, is there any future plan to increase revenues for Winter Island, whether using the structures that are there or possibly how I see it, the missed opportunity of utilizing Waikiki Beach, whether it be concession to have more residents, have more amenities? Not to say like as a parent of young kids, if there was like a bar there, I can get a drink and also be at the beach. I think that that would be well received. Is there any plan in the future to extend that? Because I just think that it's such a great amenity we have here in the city, and I think that would be something that would be well received.
I mean, I guess we could look into it for Tiki Hut. I like the idea of a Tiki Hut. I know that like Dave runs the camp store also, which, you know, sells candy, you know, t-shirts, soda, drinks, lemonade, all that stuff. So nothing with alcohol. We don't have that there. Maybe yet, it's a good idea. And then, you know, within the function room, if there's a private party and they have a bar, you know, there is an availability to have that there, but that's for people who are renting it. So we can look into it. I think, can you talk about, I think we did didn't you do, we do a coffee one or maybe the year before I got here?
It was dependent so much upon the weather.
Counselor Hepworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just add for Counselor Varela, Georgia's Pizza does deliver to the beach. So, and if you don't catch him in time, the owner will actually walk the pizza all the way down to the beach to you. I just want to thank. I don't have any suggestions here or questions. I just want to thank you for what you do for my family and for a lot of families. For my kids have grown up almost every single Friday night in the summer. They're at Waikiki Beach. There's obviously huge opportunities at all of Winter Island and a much bigger conversation that needs to happen around what we do with all those buildings, what that looks like. But just speaking as a parent and as a Salem resident, that experience that my kids have on that beach is perfect. And I just appreciate everything that you all do to make that happen.
Counselor Presniewski.
Thank you, Chair McLean, through you. To David, thank you. I've gotten to attend many functions at the gazebo, and the pergola, the function hall. I mean, you do a tremendous job with what you have over there. Two things. Number one, the big question is, what's the future for the officers' quarters? That building that's sits there. Do we have any long-range plans or goals, or is it going to be raised? Is it going to be fixed?
That's the new
fixed
mayor.
up? You know, yeah. That's,
I guess my general answer in just the time that I've been here is we've put it out to RFP. It's obviously a big undertaking, looking for private public partnerships. And I think that a couple of times at least since I've been here, but yeah, that's above my pay grade.
it just sits there year after year after year. It's, I mean, if it was taken down, it'd be more space to do something with. And if it was fixed up, it could be something that would also be attractive. I also think that, you know, Winter Island has a huge historic place in the city, going way back to the indigenous fishing industry, and then you know, the Coast Guard, Fort Pickering, Revolutionary Fort. You've got you know, the Coast Guard base. I think not many people even know that that's where Salem conducted some hangings over by where the harbor master's office is now. And it just seems like we don't put it out there. I mean, I don't know whether people that come on the island realize the historical significance and what transpired over the years over there. And that would be you know, something that would make it a little bit more attractive.
I was just gonna say when I started, we had some aging signs that a Eagle Scout did for a project one year, and they've slowly disappeared. They were either vandalized or they just, you know, time took its toll on them. So I'm open for any other Eagle projects. We still have a lot of the language, which I feel like is pretty accurate, historically accurate, that I would feel comfortable putting back out there, you know, on pedestals or whatever it took. It was a walking path, like a self-guided tour around. Yeah, if people wanted to, could do that.
Even literature for visitors who can who stay there. It was a handout. They realize where they're staying at. There's some history. Maybe we can find some money to fix that up, right?
Didn't Patty in the historic, in her role in the historic, replace some of those educational signs through CPA money?
Yes, there are a couple. You'll notice as you drive in the park, where the road splits, you can go right to the harbor master office or left towards the waterfront. There is a sign. It's my favorite picture of 4 or 5 Coast Guard seaplanes getting ready to take off. Well, the pilots are in the cockpit. But anyways, there's a nice little narrative right under the photograph. It's a good overview, and there are a couple others too scattered about. They're professionally done, not mounted correctly. Not a smaller project. This is a big job.
I do like the idea of something to give to the campers.
Walking tour would be great, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Councilor McLean. Not being a member of the committee, just a suggestion. I think Stacy Kilburn, the Sustainability Department's doing some interpretive signing around the city, including Forest River. So maybe she could help out with that too.
Councilor Morcillo.
Thank you, Chair. No paper. Don't put it on paper. Put it on the phone. Put it on an app. Everybody's got their phones with them, even when they're camping. So, you'll just create more trash. So, whatever. Yeah, QR code is great. Yeah. And I second reusing the officers' building. There's a lot of potential there. It's huge. I can think of so many things that you could do in that building that would add to the beauty of Winter Island. So.
Seeing nothing further, I'll take a motion. Councilor Hepworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 221,648. The expenditures budget in the amount of 87,725 for a grand total of 309,373.
Councilor Hepworth moves to recommend approval of the Winter Island personnel budget in the amount of 221,648. Expenditures in the amount of 87,725 for a total of 309,373. Seconded by Councilor Stott. All those in favor? I see 3 hands plus my own. The matter carries. Last up for this overarching park section is Charter Street. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. So Charter Street, I think it's been a resounding success for the, how quickly it really came together, the idea, Elizabeth managing another site with gift shop and revenue coming to the city, but also more importantly, just the presence of more people at that historic site. There are challenges where you can't completely close it off all the time. And we ran into things like where you can't really ask for money to go in, or you can't sell tickets to go into the cemetery, but you can ask for donate, like they can have a donation box, things like that. So we found creative ways, creating maps and information that they can kind of take with them. So it's been a learning curve too, just of how much do we need for a budget? What do we need to keep going? How can we continue to improve? So some of it is the same really. One of the bigger requests is under contracted services to just have some money for headstone repair and some grounds maintenance, in the cemetery itself. So that was one big ask that Elizabeth, not big, it's $5,000, but to change my budget numbers, that was an ask that we really thought was very important. And the others were basic necessities with the POS subscription costs increases, phone, internet, and then again, souvenirs, which every time we sell souvenirs, it just makes more money for the city. But they have a really good staff. They always have a unique group of people that are so adoring of the history and historic nature of some of these sites that we can get them to work here for minimum wage almost. But they're committed staff again, and they really do kind of commit to all of the areas that they work in. But they've done a great job, and I think the visibility, the attention that it gets, but just having more eyes on this site and keeping it a little bit more safe from vandalism, et cetera, has helped. And do you want to? I don't know about the budget numbers of how much we brought in, but I know it's more, right? 181,000.
Okay. Um, I, I tend to agree. I think Charter Streets Redo has been a huge success. I think it's rare when you can have success in multiple categories. I think investing the money to improve the state of the site and doing the preservation work has clearly borne some fruit. I think people treat the site better, right? I think it reinforces the site being in good care. I think people enjoy the site more. Traffic is clearly up. The interpretation and materials are very strong. And it's generating revenue. So I really think it's been a win in a lot of categories for the city. I think it's a great success. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean. I just want to echo what you just said. I think it looks really great in there, and I think it's just brought a whole great respect to the area. And yeah, I think it's really a wonderful addition to that, and it's been really terrific. Thank you.
Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with this, and I hope it can be expanded to the Broad Street Cemetery. Maybe, I know they don't have a building there, but maybe you could work out something with the Pickering House right across the street. My daughter actually works there as a docent, and she's been doing research into some of the people buried there, especially related to the Pickerings. And so there could be some synergy there between the two. Just passing that on.
Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just real quick, I'll just piggyback off that. I would love to see, I know we can't have a visitor center at every historic cemetery, but to even have in the month of October, just to have even one person there who was an employee of Witch House, Charter Street, just to be eyes. You're seeing, I'm sure you're seeing more at Broad Street Cemetery. I'm seeing more at Howard Street, just people looking for a place to go and something to do. And I think that having somebody there to sort of encourage people to treat it with respect, I think would be a positive and easy step in the right direction.
Okay, seeing nothing further, I'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 148,843, the expenditures budget in the amount of 59,690 for a grand total of 208,533.
Councilor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the Charter Street personnel budget in the amount of 148,843, expenditures in the amount of 59,690 for a total of 208,533. All those in favor? I see 3 hands plus my own. That matter carries. I think we have made it through our entire recreation section. Thank you, Trish, and to all of your team for coming in, answering our questions, for all the work you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for your support.
Okay. We will be moving on to engineering. Tiny bit of housekeeping before we dive in. It is 8:26. So we've got a reasonable amount of material to cover. Recreation was always going to be a large one, but we are in our 5th budget hearing tonight. We've got 2 more to go, plus our regular meeting. I'm going to remind counselors that this is co-posted, so you're all members of the committee of the whole. Welcome to speak. I'm going to ask everybody to really target their comments for the balance of this meeting. Let's talk about the budget. If you are sort of getting into, I would love to see this happen, please relate it to a project that's already in progress, not just a wish list item. Ask questions. If it's an advocacy round kind of thing, or something that we're going to have a point in the process later on where we can talk about it, save it for later in the process. Let's try to talk about what's on the table in front of us so we can get through this, respect the time of the people who are in front of us, who've been with us, some of them every time. Let's get out of here. All right, done being grumpy. Yes.
I can just preface this by saying, so Dev has stepped up as the acting engineer for the city after some personnel changes in the last few days. Really been asked to take on a lot of responsibility here just the last 48 hours. Super grateful for everything that she's done to pull this together, and to the folks in the department, and as well as the Public Services Department for pulling together during the transition time here. So that being said, we're here to answer questions and fire away.
Okay, welcome. I'm going to guess that you still have a pretty good handle on what goes on in your department, so I'll put you in the same spot. Go ahead and give us a sense of your areas of responsibility, and then we can dive into the numbers.
Sure. Okay, loud enough. The engineering department, basically we manage and support and work to upgrade the municipal infrastructure. So that's the water, sewer, drain, sidewalks, roadways. And we help support other departments as they're moving through projects that interact with the infrastructure that I just mentioned. We have a GIS technician who manages those assets electronically, so we know what is available when we're dealing with contractors, developers, that sort of business. We issue permits, street opening permits for developers and contractors who are engaging with the water, sewer, drainage, so that we can protect that infrastructure for the city. We also have the water, sewer, and solid waste enterprise funds in our department. Missed anything? General engineering. The personnel, the overall increase for COLA was 1.58%, and the expenses are level funded. Do you want to, and we can also talk about the capital plans as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Would you like me to walk you through the engineering capital projects that are listed?
Please do.
Sure. Okay, so there's Boston Street, Complete Streets. So that is basically upgrading the Boston Street corridor. That's a full reconstruction, sidewalks, roadways, alignments, that sort of thing. The next one is Derby Street, Complete Streets. And that's the 3rd phase. So we've been seeing this happening regularly now, year in, year out, replacing sidewalks and roadways. Traffic calming measures as well in that street, drainage improvements. And the last one is the citywide road roads, sidewalks, and crosswalk improvements, the non-Chapter 91. So we get funding for our Chapter 91 state, and then the city has additional funding for those improvements to road surfaces, sidewalks.
And the Boston Street upgrade, that's the money that's included in this year of the capital project is for the design phase of that project, correct?
One that's Mass DOT project, so it's in a tip. So we do the design, they pay construction. Yeah.
Great. Questions and comments? Anybody? Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. So is there money somewhere in here for the Rosie's Pond and the Ocean Ave West pumps?
Yeah, so under the capital plan, the engineering sewer department, they have the Rosie's pond flood protection and drainage, which has the 4 million. And you said the pump station also is in that same section, and it's 1.65. Oh, sorry. It's the 10. Ugh. 10.5 million for
Okay.
the pump station.
So where is that? What's that going to get us to? Do you know offhand this year?
So that project is currently in the design phase. I haven't seen the 60%. I'm expecting that in July. But this is the construction cost, the estimated construction cost.
For both or for
10.5 is for the
pump station?
And then the 4 is the construction cost. The berms and the wall.
So, I mean, we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but we're planning to move ahead with that and get those agreements signed again and hopefully go to bid this year.
That is the hope. Obviously, things have significantly changed from my perspective and workload and the missing staff that we had even before the change
Yeah.
leadership. So that is the plan. Get back to you in a couple of weeks once I've sort of sorted out where we are for all the other projects, because it was a focus that David had asked me to work on prior to his departure. So I know he wanted that. I just don't know now stepping into this role.
Yep.
Staff.
Okay. Can you give a really very brief update on sci-fi?
So if I may, I can respond to that one. So sci-fi, there's been some dialogue with them about depth of trench and some issues related to the construction. The pilot was not as entirely successful as I think they had hoped it would be. They're no longer, their development agreement with the city has expired. And they do have interest in renewing that agreement, so that would have to also for your approval. That was a project that Vicky had been working on and then transferred to Dave Rodriguez, and I think it's now assistant solicitor to help move that forward with her. Just from a project standpoint, the world of high-speed fiber internet, 5G, has changed tremendously since 2015 when we first started this journey. And I'm willing to hear them out, but I think that it's not the only option in the world right now for high-speed internet, and particularly with the shortcomings from the pilot demonstration for the micro-trenching. I think that they have a higher hurdle to demonstrate that it's the right fit for our community. Not saying it isn't, but I think they still have some work to do to demonstrate that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Is there going to be an RFP for redoing this?
There may be an RFP. MAPC has some great expertise in this space, and it was something that we had started having a dialogue with them about in December, late last year, and I think has stalled. And I'd like to restart that about whether it's an RFP or some other approach.
What was that company?
MAPC, Metroplanetary.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole program devoted to high-speed fiber.
Okay, and I will ask the question and allow you to answer this. Do you have a list of streets and sidewalks that are going to be repaired?
Well, I have, I have a preliminary list that David put together, but it is very preliminary, and the goal would be for us to communicate with our consultant Beta, who does our assessments for our sidewalks and our roads. They're currently doing one. I don't think that I'll be getting results from that until a couple of months from now. So it would be hard to use the new data. So we'd have to use the prior data to sort of assess which. But again, it's just a preliminary list, which we can share.
I mean, okay, all right, let me be clear. There's so many people asking if their street is gonna be fixed this year. And to tell you the truth, I've been led to believe that some of them will be, and so is there a date when we're gonna have this resolved? I know everybody's short-staffed, but I mean, it's already construction season. And I know you know that. And I feel like we lost time last year too because of shortages in manpower, and the list goes on. But it's just the number one question is streets and sidewalks. So
Yeah, and my understanding is we do sidewalks first and then we pave the streets, right? So we get the sidewalks ready and then we mill and pave the streets. And sidewalks are very expensive to do. And so there may be a lot more sidewalk action this year and then more paving next year in those same neighborhoods. But I don't have a date. I don't know if Dominic wants to commit a date.
To a date, I don't know the status of list and
Okay.
stands for that.
just know that it's a high priority for every single ward counselor.
Oh,
And we outnumber you guys.
I understand.
Okay.
Well, no, look, it'll happen. We'll share the list, and, we'll
Okay.
get your feedback on the list, and, we'll spend all of the Chapter 90 money and all the capital funds that were directed to streets and sidewalk. But, you're
Fair
catching
enough.
us at a disadvantage where I've been here for, 10 days, and Deb's been asked to take this on the last 48 hours, so.
I understand completely, and we've been asking for months because we know the budget's coming up, and so just know that too. My last question is, and I don't know who can answer this, but what's the difference between your sidewalk budget and DPS's sidewalk budget?
So typically, we're doing the bigger swaths. Ray can answer this well, but so if it's a whole replacement along a whole street, it's usually coming from engineering because it's sort of a designed approach. Whereas DPS is usually managing, like, there's a couple of panels that need to be replaced or a section that needs to be replaced and not.
You need a.
DPS primarily works with engineering on the smaller aspects of sidewalk. Their budget is a little bit less to repair those, as we can go over that by station. We focus on areas where we used to work with Jay Carroll and Dave, aspects of utilizing his budget, its capacity for streets, sidewalk sets. As much Dominic mentioned, to utilize the chapter 9 full capacity.
Okay, thank you.
This is a question for the finance director, just because I noticed it as we were talking about it. Can you clarify the funding source for the Ocean Ave stormwater pump station? There's nothing listed. There's nothing approved from last year.
Imaginary money.
It's all imaginary money.
Thank you. And actually, the mayor and I were just noticing that something didn't pull through. It's the sewer bond.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll get that fixed for the final version.
Great. Alter Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean, not being a member of the committee. And I know this isn't in the budget, but I had spoken to David a couple of weeks ago about, in the bigger picture, the Willow Ave sewer pipe, the hopeful potential of us getting a big grant from the state to fix that completely. But he had mentioned that there was $1 million coming to us to maintain it in the meantime. Are you aware of that?
So I had a meeting this afternoon with the consulting engineer who is working on that project, and he mentioned something about an earmark that might be in the works to be able to replace the pier pieces, basically to keep it moving forward. I don't know how much that is or where it's coming from, as far as I know.
Okay. Well, Council President and I are pretty focused on that, so we'll stay in touch with you on that, because we were denied the federal grant because it hadn't broken, unfortunately. But there's a lot of people in the neighborhoods that are concerned, not just for the environmental, but the health aspects. And I know you're aware. And Grenice has done a good job at keeping the supports intact, but at least visibly they're precarious, and obviously like 50, 60 years past their time. So I just mentioning that because I know it's not necessarily money in the budget that we're hoping that the legislature is going to get that to us so that we can bridge to the bigger project.
Seeing nothing further, I'll take a motion on the general admin. Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 169,665. The expenditures budget in the amount of 26,000 for a grand total of 186,965.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of engineering's general admin personnel budget in the amount of 160,965. Expenditures in the amount of 26,000 for a total of 186,965. All those in favor? I see 3 hands plus my own. That matter carries. Need to go backwards. I forgot.
If next up is the sewer enterprise for engineering, that's on page 821. And I believe it's under tab 28.
Give me that page number again, please.
I believe it should be, hopefully, page 821 under tab 28. After public services is the first section, and then engineering should follow right after that in tab 28. Is that where your book?
It starts at page 818, actually.
Okay.
I think we moved into this conversation a little bit, but if there are any other items that that you would like to highlight or that counselors have questions about.
There are some increase in expenses, in particular associated with the contracted maintenance services, annual catch basin cleaning. In that case, the increase is largely due to rebidding the contract. So it was a new year. Prices have gone up like they have for everyone everywhere. And then there's a new item regarding fats, oil, and grease program. So it's the FOG program for the sewers. And that is a new program, and there's some regulations that have been passed through the Board of Health. And so it will be an annual grease trap inspection for the restaurants. And that is being provided by a consultant, so we'll work to inspect those grease traps. And the other larger increase is associated with a pump station operation and maintenance. There's an increase in the pump station maintenance. A lot of the pump stations, a lot of the elements within those are getting to their useful life and need to be upgraded and repaired. So that's the increase there. I'm on page 824.
Do you have a sense of how much work is captured in this pump station maintenance number? I mean, I think we'll recall we had issues with the pump station on Highland Avenue during the last summer season. Um, we've heard some information already about the sort of overall status, but um, do these funds capture all the sort of expected needed maintenance at all of our pump stations? Does this just sort of get us 20% closer to being up to date? I'm just trying to get a sense of how much more money is coming down the pipe to address the system.
That's a fair question. In terms of this is the sewer enterprise. So this is the sewer pump stations. There's 8 of those, and it's and there's 1 stormwater pump station. So this is really, those are just need regular maintenance, except for the stormwater pump station on Nav that has those helical pumps that are 2 of the 3 are out of service currently. So there's some significant maintenance needs there as we're working towards the finalizing the design and then the construction of it. So the water one wouldn't be captured.
Got you. Thank you for that distinction. I'll bring my question back. We move
Ask
forward.
next time.
A lot of money for those grease traps. So I did notice that when I received my water and sewer bill, it included pamphlet information for residential use about handling of your grease and waste oils.
Honestly, the costs that's associated with clearing those clogs and the backups, that's not much money in the grand scheme of what we're trying to prevent, protect.
If you had to, I realize you don't have a real number for that, but if you were going to make a comparison, you know, without having this upfront sort of maintenance cost put in, how much money would we be spending down the pipe?
On clearing clogs.
Yeah. Let's say in a year. Pick, you know, give me.
So Ray is the team, right, that has to go out there
Yeah,
when these clogs
paint me a picture, Rick.
Thank you. Counselor, that's a fantastic question. I'll have to get back to you on that information. I do have calendar years where we do keep costs from contractors and what our costs are. To prelude a little bit to more on what Deb was mentioning about like we have ongoing CCT camera work, stuff, see it a lot. Those prices systematically keep cleaning and cistern cleaning and a lot of that stuff. A lot of those costs will level out sporadically. If again, put in better practices for less grease.
Okay, so is it fair to say we're likely to save money over the long term?
That is correct.
Yeah, and insurance costs for sure. Because obviously when it's clogs, we usually hear about it when it's backing up into some business and then responsible. Or homes, worse, yeah.
Seeing nothing further?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Microphone is always a challenge. If I could just briefly, just maybe help provide some context for the committee on the CIP side for sewer, and then this comment is also relevant for water. But the items that when the consultant on the water and sewer rates came in to present, part of what was informing their recommendation regarding rates, and this is sort of previewing a meeting for later this week, but just to give the committee context for this, and I believe it's also the bonds are, I believe, up for discussion tonight as well. Anything that's on a sewer bond or a water bond that is listed in the capital plan, all of those projects were part of what was built into the model that the consultant was presenting that night. So that scenario that was presented assumes that all of these projects go forward and the debt service associated with these projects, the timing for when that would come online, was baked into that model, which informed the recommendation. It wasn't a full recommendation at that point. It was just a scenario, but I believe that scenario is the current recommendation. Should any of these projects come off, that would change, or should any of these projects be funded in another way in the future, that recommendation would change. But just wanted the committee to be aware that anything labeled sewer bond or water bond was baked into the water and sewer rate consultants presentation that occurred a couple weeks ago. And that's what's informing the changes in the rates a little bit differently than what has been the past couple of years.
Thank you. Yes, Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Chairman. I ain't been a member of the committee. Thank you for stepping in. I know you fairly new, but I had a question. Maybe Mayor or maybe Raymond can answer it. The water breaks that we had during the last year, in conversation that I hear from previous meetings, talking about the order of the infrastructure that we have and we're working on. Do you have any assessment right now, or how the work is being complete in the fact of making some change to prevent some of those water breaks that we used to have in the past?
So that's a good good question, Counselor. So we're always reviewing our water break list with New England Civil and compiling lists of frequency of breaks, reason for breaks, and going through that process. And then working with presenting the council with viable option for main replacements. Like Ms. Marcello mentioned before, we replaced the water main on Morton Street because we exhibited 6 or 7 water breaks over a year. So we constantly review those lists. We constantly review them, put them in a replacement program when applicable.
Thank you. Just wonder about, but good answer. Thank you.
I could add on the sewer and drain, it's a little bit of a different process. What we do for that is when we have the paving list, we go out and we run a camera through the sewers and the drains to see their status before we pave. So that can hopefully prevent us from having to go dig up a road we just paved. So that is how we sort of keep an eye on the sewer. The water is harder because we can't just run a camera. So we tend to look at where we've had issues in the past and why we might have those issues, and then attack it.
Seeing nothing further. Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 207,246. The expenditures budget in the amount of 1,010,150 for a grand total of 1,217,396.
Councilor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the sewer enterprise personnel budget in the amount of 207,246. Expenditures in the amount of 1,010,150 for a total of 1,217,396, seconded by Councilor Stott. All those in favor? I see 3 plus my own. That carries.
I believe engineering water starts on page 843 in tab 29.
And on page 845, there's the expenditures, and I can go through the ones that have significant variances. The electricity, I think we all know why that is. Relative to the backflow contracted services, that is, again, another update of a contract with one of our consultants who does the work, and so their fees have gone up. Pump station operation and maintenance. So again, that's that same consultant who does the pump station operation and maintenance, and their fees have gone up. And then the water meters separately, but like everything else, they have gotten more expensive, and there's also, they're hard to come by, so we're having to order in advance. Plus we are, and I think that there's in the CIP, there's a water meter replacement program budget for 200,000 as well, because we're coming up on the 10-year life cycle of those, which brings them out of warranty. So many of them will likely need to be replaced more so than they have for time.
Remember that question I asked you a few minutes ago?
No, and I don't see.
So I'm looking at the pump station operations and maintenance. It does just about double, but it looks like less than half of it is actually for water. But same question, how much does it actually move the needle in terms of catching us up with equipment that's nearing the end of its functional life or beginning to take some of that off the board?
I would need to get back to you on that, because I'd want to talk to the consultant who, they were there to manage the break that we had, the solution. I don't know what else is needed, so I can coordinate that. Unless,
That's fair.
there are a lot more over there.
Okay.
If I could just quickly add on the capital improvement plan, in both water and I neglected to mention in sewer, there are there's an initiative in sewer and an initiative in water that would propose to utilize retained earnings, and that would help offset any further increases needed related to rates. And so I think there is, in terms of a capital planning strategy, there is a goal to identify some smaller projects that can be completed usually within 1 year, and to hopefully continue to generate sufficient retained earnings to have those projects be less costly, since we wouldn't be paying interest and debt service, especially as interest rates keep rising. And so I just noticed those hadn't been mentioned yet. And so that is the water meter replacement program in the water fund, and that was the Loring and Cedar drain improvements in the sewer fund. But those are the other projects are all the bond.
Thank you. Counselor Stock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say a quick thanks for stepping up and doing the work and coming here and being in this position this evening. And similar to Ray, I'm actually going to have to step out, so that's why I wanted to make a comment and say thank you for that. But you still have a quorum, so I think you'll be good with voting. My one comment on overall services, along with the request for the road and street paving, mention that to the mayor again. With the water main breaks, when they do happen, the communication of those, like I've seen emails go out and it's kind of like a random PCC and CC and who's on there. And like, I have never been on the list unless if I specifically asked, and I always feel horrible, like texting, Ray on a weekend or something. So I don't know if there's maybe a shared service that we could use internally with the code red, or just include all of the city councilors when a water main breaks. That would be very helpful. And on that note, again, thank you. Definitely appreciate all that you're doing.
Councilor Domingos.
Thank you, Chair McLean. explained through you. I would like to ask in the improvement of the flow reduce. I know you, as an engineer, might have some idea to answer this. What do you think we should do to increase or improve the system? That because me as a resident, I receive a letter almost periodically telling me that I have a leak in somewhere, but I don't find the leak. So technology might be the answer, but you can answer me with more maybe technical answer in regard to what can we do as a city to help residents find those leaks and eventually help the city to maybe reduce some of the leak that we see citywide.
So are you talking about on your water bill that you
Yeah,
told that you have continuous usage, those letters?
Yeah.
Yeah, so more often than not, it is a toilet tank. And so the easiest way to detect that is to put some kind of color in the tank and then see if that bleeds into the toilet bowl. And then because it's one of those things that often when you have a leak, you don't hear it. You don't hear maybe the toilet running all the time. So you don't know. That is the most common cause of a continuous water read.
We changed the toilet completely. And we continue to receive the letter.
And you're still having a continuous water.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nice thing about water, if it's leaking, it comes out someplace. So right after you see it, you end up seeing it. So where your meter is, all the piping that goes through your house, if we're detecting a leak, it's after the meter. So it's got to be from some of the pipes within your property. So you should be seeing water somewhere if it's not the
My mother would be appalled at all this toilet talk. All right, seeing nothing further, Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 207,246, expenditures budget in the amount of 745,50 for a grand total of 952,296.
Counselor Hapworth moves to approve the water enterprise personnel budget in the amount of 207,246. Expenditures in the amount of 745,050 for a total of 952,296, seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? I see two hands plus my own. That matter carries.
Solid Waste Enterprise Fund should, I believe, be tab 30. Yeah, tab 30.
So on page 864, the budget details, we can go over the changes. So the bulk item collections, the mattresses and the bulk items, I think you have heard about these changes, right? So mattresses are no longer allowed in the solid waste stream as such as bulk items. And we're also now charging for bulk items, the residents, but in both cases, the city picks up a portion of that fee. So for the mattresses, the cost is $50 for the mattress, but the city picks up. So the residents are paying 20. And for the bulk items, those go at $25. And we're picking up 5 of those dollars, so residents need to pay the other. So that's why there's a decrease from the fiscal 23 to the fiscal 24, is that more of the cost is being borne by the resident. And then the other increase is replacement parts. Yeah, it's, and that is based on demand. I think that we normally have a backlog, and right now we don't. So there may be the need to purchase more up in order to be able to service issues with their totes.
You know what's going on with the reduction in Sharps disposal?
I don't, but I
We just have
to look into it for you.
less needles on the street. I mean, less needles on the street would be great, but
I don't know. I'd be happy to check into that for you. And the other generals is that the contract is going up 2.5% next year. I do want to note that Janelle's been doing a bang up job with all these events to try to reduce the tonnage in the waste stream. So it's been really great.
anything relative to capital, or have we got through all the capital?
New trash truck from retained earnings, but I don't know if that's on the.
I'm looking for it just to make sure it appears in here, and if it's not, it's intended to be in here. But there is proposed to replace the trash truck that picks up from the municipal sites, and I know it's in here, and I apologize that I'm not finding it quickly to direct your attention to it.
It's in the public services.
It's in the public services. Oh, because it's in the wrong. It should be under engineering technically. Yeah. So that in the funds being used to that there are some retained earnings associated with the solid waste fund. So that would. Yes, $160,000.
Questions or comments from the council? Any? Seeing none. Councilor Epworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of $83,426. Expenditures budget in the amount of $4,040,835 for a grand total of $4,124,261.
Councilor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the trash and solid waste enterprise personnel budget in the amount of $83,426. Expenditures in the amount of $4,040,835 for a total of $4,124,261. Seconded by Councilor Merkel. All those in favor? I see 2 hands plus my own. The matter carries. I think you're off the hook. Thank you so much for joining us. Public services. No more up and down. Now you just get to sit.
Mr. Joden is new to us, and
Yeah, just started last week. Thanks. So for most, I believe I know everybody, some of you more than others. So again, Ray Joden, I'm the acting DPS director as of 2 days ago. Surprise. So thank you for inviting me to present the Department of Public Services budget to you guys. I really appreciate it. Department of Public Services manage about $3.8 million a year in city funds. The money is primarily used to maintain about 90 miles of streets, including streets, sidewalks, about 32 parks, 28 playgrounds, 48 common areas, and about 5 cemeteries within the city limits. So we've put together a comprehensive budget which only increases the general fund by 4%. This budget is pretty much broken out into general expenditures and personnel expenditures. On the first category we looked at is our budget for operational funds, which was only a 1.6% increase in our operating budget due to rising costs of materials, a lot of city resources from people visiting during the month of October's, and just to comment on everything seems to be expanding well into the seasonal summer. More people are using parks, more people are visiting our city, and that's what we want, right? We want more people visiting. We want more people. We want to reach. Forest River is seeing more and more residents using it as that's what we want. So we asked for about $10,000 more in our bathroom cleaning budget line for the month of October. We asked for about a 10% increase in our electrical. No surprise there. We asked for an increase of 10% in our custodian supplies and groundskeeping supplies in DPS. And then we also asked for a 14% increase in our motor pool repair lines. Again, costs of infrastructure is going up, costs of supplies, everything is rising. Kind of is indicative of those costs. We also would like to note, like I said, 14% increase in the motor pool repair lines. I know it sounds like an insignificant sum, but it really isn't. It's a small amount to keep these vehicles open for safety, use. It is a small amount in the big scheme of things. Like I said, onto our second category is our staffing. Our staffing, we're only asking for a 5.2% increase. Most of that is due to contractual obligations. You can get into it if you want, but it's pretty standard. It's about. That's pretty much all I had for my general. If anybody has any questions about the general budget, I'd be more than happy to entertain that before I move into my CIP.
Thank you, Ray. You mentioned increased seasonal needs in passing there. Is your situation similar to the one that we heard from Park and Recreation? Is that simply bringing on hands for a longer season of extra support than we would have in the past, or are there actually more part-time workers?
So that's a fantastic question, Council. Yes, we brought on a few more seasonal workers to help out, especially with trash, especially with seasonal watering trucks. I mean, we're planting a lot more trees within the city, so we need to send out our water wagons to meet the demands of bringing in gateway cities to meet that grant obligation. So we're bringing in more staff to deal with that, but also with rising labor costs, seasonal work.
Okay, so a little bit of both. Thank you. Councilor Marcillo.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ray. I want to start by saying that last October, the downtown was the cleanest that I ever remember it. So your staff did an excellent job.
They have a fantastic thank you.
Yeah. Can you talk about the City Stat program and what that is?
City Stat program, yes. So the City Stat program is something new that we've been working with. Well, not really new. It's different iterations throughout the time that data management analyst has been working. How many see-click fix reports that we get into the city, what ward they come in, what season, what job classification, put in work orders. It's a decent way of categorizing how much work actually comes in and what we actually dish out to each one of the wards.
I'm going to say again this year that you need to publicize some of this data, because you guys do a really excellent job and you do a lot of work. And I think people see their click fixes go in and it may not get handled right away, but you guys are doing a lot of work and you have the data. You just need to put it into some sort of a nice little chart like we had for COVID that I think the mayor had something to do with. I think it would, once you set it up once, you could do it quarterly and pat yourselves on the back, because I think you should do that.
I'll say, so we're bringing together the departments that have participated in Salem Stat in the past to kind of reassess what data we're collecting and why. Really the point of City Stat is to look at data in order to be able to make changes to, policies and practices to either deliver services more efficiently or meet an unmet need. And so just getting data to have the sake of looking at data isn't necessarily the best use of everyone's time. So my direction to Sean Santos and the team who've been working on this is that we're going to reassess what kind of information we're collecting from the participating departments. A few of our participating departments are under new leadership or acting leadership. So there's also a little bit of a need to bring them on board with the processes. And then look at what kind of dashboard information we might share publicly. Some of it is, I think, of great interest to the public. And some of it is very like, we're looking at payroll, we're looking at overtime, trying to figure out like staffing and things that probably.
Numbers associated with the number of pavement blocks that are replaced or the number of brick sidewalk. I mean, that's what people want to know when they put their stuff into Click Fix. How much of it is really getting fixed, right? Because there's always that person that says, I put my request in 2 years ago, and they think that it just goes into the ether, right? But it's not. So I think there's plenty of data that could be published, that would be very helpful. Same with, snow type information in the winter, right? Like there's just stuff that you could publish that would be interesting and informative and help people understand where their tax money is going, right? Sidewalks and streets. That's the big thing. You had a note in here about assisting the restaurant community to set up safe eateries outside. Do you have, you may not, so you can get back to me, but some sort of any sort of data on how long an average restaurant takes to set up and the costs associated with that for your department?
I will have to get that information to you, Counselor.
Okay.
It varies depending on eatery.
Understood. I think, when we're looking at ordinances for outdoor eating and coming up with some sort of a price to charge for setting it up or to having it, that kind of information is really important. So.
Understood.
Yep. Okay. There's also on page 704, there's something about the street division repairing sidewalks at 144 locations, and you're working on sidewalks identified as high priority sidewalks. What's the definition for high priority?
A high priority is where the sidewalk has been so compromised that somebody has fallen, tripped, injured themselves. I believe it's a raise of 2 or 3 inches on a square, spalding to the point where, again, an accident would.
So then what's the difference between working with engineering to identify sidewalks that don't meet ADA requirements? Because it sounds like it's the same thing.
It is and it isn't.
Okay.
So remember how I mentioned to you that DPS has a smaller budget for sidewalk? So if we dive into the budget, if we look on to improvements to public work and park and renovation and repair and sidewalks, I roughly have about 70,000 and 60,000 for concrete repairs. It's about $130,000. That's all my trenches, my sidewalks. That's what I have to fix my sidewalks. So DPS was able to fix 144 separate locations with that.
Wow.
So where if we took on larger projects like EDA pads or something, longer stretches of sidewalk, there would be less locations that I could facilitate to the residents.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, so the ADA, when you're looking at ADA type stuff, is it like broken sidewalks or is it ramps for crosswalks? What is it? How?
Both.
Both.
I think it would also depend on the size and the scope of the project. If it's one raised panel that's making a sidewalk not accessible, that's a DPS can manage that. But if it's missing a sidewalk,
Yeah.
on the street, then it's an engineering project.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean. Very appreciative that all the sidewalks and potholes are fixed in Ward 5. And I'm joking, but I find that you and your department is very responsive. And I don't just mean getting back to people, but I mean, today there was a sinkhole and a water main issue in Ward 5. We had the Levitt Street, which was a really huge water main break that kept breaking, because there's so much water in the ground. So every time you opened up a spot, I know it went like down the street. Just a couple of things. One, because I am so appreciative of the way you respond, and your staff does. Are you feeling that you're getting close to being fully staffed with mechanics?
My mechanic division right now is still short 2 FTEs. So
2 out of 3?
2 out of 2 out of
2 out of 4? Okay. And the reason I ask that is even though we're going to come up on the snow budget, your mechanics are actually fixing private vehicles.
we offer that service for contractors that get billed to their services. Yeah.
I'm hoping that this is included in your budget, but, and we've talked about this, the Forest River ramp, speaking of ADA stuff, which gets covered with sand. And do you have a way of like, other than someone contacting you, of knowing when it's time to go out? I know it's a
It's something.
Sisyphus type thing that you can never get a handle on it.
That's a good point, Counselor. It is something that we need to struggle with to put it on a regular maintenance to get at it. I mean, we ruined beaches and literally the next day it needs to be cleaned again. I think many eyes the better. If they see something intruding on the ramp, please let us know sooner rather than later. But that's something we'll work on a regular.
And lastly, I know that your conversations about just like we're projecting a new high school, the dire need to have a more modern, much larger DPS facility. And just had a thought that city invest and buy grief because it's right next door. It's large. It has a lot of equipment that you could use, weigh stations, a lot of equipment to process, waste and recycling. And I'm hoping you and the mayor can have conversations about that because that would keep the facility downtown and be more localized than other areas that have been presented where you would have to have multiple facilities to reach emergency areas. So just a thought. I just, from a overhead, I don't know if it meets the right size, but there's a lot of things that happen in that facility that could be advantageous. And I'm assuming that because of the nature of what has been there for 60 years, that it wouldn't be that attractive to, for residential or something else. Just a thought.
Understood. Thank you, Council. We'll review it.
Councilor Dominguez.
Thank you, Chair McLean. Thank thank you, Ray, for your hard work. I have to conclude with Councilor point on your response. It's been so quickly and so attend to any issue that you see. My question is going toward the citywide amount of trash that we have collected. You say that in your notes here that increase to 200 tons. Does you have any data where that trash coming from visitors? We have increased the population, and what exactly is the cause of bringing more, having more trash?
That's a great question, Counselor. So we have roughly about 240 barrels, city barrels that we maintain in season throughout the city. Most of them are in parks and open spaces like the Willows and Forest River. And what we've noticed is the frequency of pickups in those areas have caused us to staff those areas more with over, try to remove that trash. A lot of those areas will generate more, and that's where our increased amounts are. The other is obviously the Ward 2, especially the Point neighborhood, with extra pickups over there. That's causing try to minimize that in that area.
Does that mean the population increase in the Point neighborhood?
We have increased our pickups to that area with our weekend coverage. I believe there are 17 barrels in the Point area that we facilitate.
Okay. Any plan to alleviate that situation in the future? I mean, how we're going to address? We continue to see more trash.
I think that's always an ongoing issue that we have to work with engineering, see what the best avenues are, providing DPS used to meant versus the solid waste avenues that may be available. Waste management.
Thank you.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, Chair McLean. Yes, I want to also say how responsive the department's been, the great work you and your staff are doing, and it's much appreciated. And also, I was going to comment on the trash as well, but some has already been said. But I appreciate that it's not just the downtown, that it's citywide, that we've noticed a lot of efforts. I know Janelle's and the cleanups and everything has really made a difference. And I appreciate again that, yeah, it's not just the downtown. But one comment coming in, and I didn't know if you knew anything about it, because maybe it's something Janelle's working on. But when it says the goal to work with the community to establish a public relations plan for to reduce litter. And I think that's interesting. What does that speak to?
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So Katie Neiman is my open space foreman, and she works very well with Janelle, working with groups with either providing them supplies or resources or scheduling to remove some of those items from those spaces for community cleanups. It's just involving and drawing community engagement to go to these parks, to go to these open spaces, to buy in, to help cleaning their space up, and then having the Department of Public Works go in to remove those items. It's just sort of a co-relationship that works.
So you're referring to the Keep Salem Beautiful monthly cleanups, and that I regularly participate in, and they're a lot of fun too.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we do appreciate the pickups that the city does and comes around and the supplies. Thank you for that.
Ray, just one curiosity I noticed as I was looking over the budget detail in your professional services line. You had made a request, looks like to bring in some new technology, a time and attendance program annual fee. It wasn't approved, but I'm just curious what your goal was, like what you were trying to accomplish there.
So with that particular upgrade, it's still in the infancy stages of implementation. So we, Anna and I worked on, we decided to pull it from our operational fund and put it in as capital improvement request until it gets fully implemented and we can discuss that at a later date, moving that into our.
What is it?
It is for the time and attendance for employees. It's to automate the payroll system for the Department of Public Services and or future employees, for the rest of the city.
Understood. So
Yes. Yeah, time clock payroll system. So it's much like, yeah. time-
okay. Are you still using an old school like cha-chunk?
Yep. We are still paper. We are still very much manual and yes.
That's amazing.
It eats up a lot of our office staff time to do that. Payroll sometimes ends up coming in late because we're the largest department. So we're trying to help expedite that, minimize the impact, try to improve labor costs for the city as a whole.
Understood. Thank you. Since you mentioned it, anything else in capital cost that you want to highlight?
So I have annual small repairs for the Department of Public Building and Cemeteries for $20,000. I also have an ADA improvement for $20,000 for DPS and cemeteries. I have a trailer mounted leaf vacuum for $170,000. I have greening of the gateway cities for $99,000, which is a matching grant, I might add. 16.5 for Taylor, which I just discussed, and my trash truck for $160,000. And answer questions individually. All it's up to you.
That trash truck is retained earnings in the trash enterprise fund. The rest are short term.
So part of the leaf sucker unit, I know that's a hefty expense of $170,000. We pushed back last year our street sweeping program to encompass a lot of the neighborhoods with leaves. This purchase would help us augment that to try to help. I know that there was always issues with street sweeping down, overtime costs. So this purchase would help us alleviate, try to help some residents in the fall season, as well as trying to expedite the process of public space cleaning. It's always a mad dash in the spring.
Okay. Seeing nothing further, I will accept a motion. Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of $2,060,370. The expenditures budget in the amount of $1,747,850 for a grand total of $3,808,220.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of Public Services General Admin Personnel Budget in the amount of $2,060,370. Expenditures in the amount of $1,747,850 for a total of $3,808,220. Seconded by Council Merkel. All those in favor? I see two hands plus my own. That matter carries.
I believe snow and ice is likely up next, and it should just follow in your binder at the very end of the public services. Tab 20.
Indeed, it does. So 719.
To our favorite snow and ice. Yay. So there's no significant requests or changes. It's level funded. So this year, out of the snow budget, DPS actually worked on installing a brine station at DPW. This is a phased approach. It does take a considerable amount of money to walk us there. It does take a little bit of time. Liquid brine is a certificate tool that's used for city departments of public works to help maintain roadways during the winter months. It's commonly used to pre-treat roads before a winter storm to melt existing snow and ice to prevent new snow and ice from forming and adhering to the roads. Brine is a combination of sodium chloride and water. The DPW typically mixes up the proportion of 23.3% salt with 76.7% water because the mixture is proven to be the most effective and the most effective way to treat snow and ice. Once the brine is prepared, it can be sprayed onto the roadway before the storm to arrive, helps to break the bond between the snow and ice adhering to the road, thus using less salt, preventing better environment. Less salt, lower price, and it's just better all the way. Phase 2 would be to try to supply some more of this equipment that would apply this liquid brine to the roads. We did purchase 2 units this year to try to help try that. We tried implementing, I don't know if any of you saw the white lines in the roadway this year. We were trying to implement that process to try to figure out how that works. This year, we'd be buying some more products, adding some more additives, try to help treat the road sooner to the road. That's driving down those salt costs. So I am open for any questions. I know it's a front solve. So I'm willing to answer any and all questions that anybody might have. Sorry, sir.
Well, I don't have any budget questions, but I will take a page out of Council Marcillo's book and say it'd be great to have some more targeted, more interesting data points about this. I'm a little bit amazed to see us no budget level funded year over year. It just, to me, that says something about what's going on in the environment, right? Like costs don't go down. And so to see the costs sort of stay here is kind of amazing.
Thank you, Chair. So to clarify on the snow and ice budget, this is a very unique budget across any expenditures that the city is allowed to incur from the general fund. The snow and ice budget, cities are allowed to spend in deficit. And so typically what cities and towns do is they maintain their budget line at a certain amount that was set at some point in the past, because once they increase it, they're never allowed to decrease it again, and they're not allowed to cut it. And so what happens with snow and ice is that, for example, I believe we incurred close to $2 million in snow and ice costs this year. And so the city still has to pay the additional gap, but it's typically paid one or two ways. One, either if the city is turning back enough funds at the end of the current fiscal year, which I'm crossing my fingers that we are, and so we'll council with a request to transfer funds in to remediate the deficit. If that can't fully mitigate the deficit, the remainder is raised through the tax process in the fall. And so when we balance the budget, we try to anticipate how much would need to be afforded within the overall sort of budget balance to accommodate any deficits in snow and ice. And so it's the budget that typically municipalities approve for snow and ice every year, fortunately is not fully capturing the full cost center. And to the point about the data points, likely isn't fully transparent, the total costs, because of the requirement. If the city were to decide to fully appropriate it up front, if you ever needed to make cuts in that, you would have to make the cuts elsewhere in the budget. I just wanted to make sure. It's very confusing, and most folks aren't aware of that dynamic because it's happening not in a way that's fully visible.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really helpful reminder. So I think that sort of leaves me in the same place. I think that leaves me wanting a really clear picture of actuals for this particular budget setup, right? Knowing that we're likely, spending into a deficit and what we're budgeting is not reflecting true cost. Having a sense of the actuals as we look at it would help us to sort of see what's actually trending. But I would still love to just see in a general way, like how many storm events is DPS responding to? What kinds of storm events are you responding to in a given year? How many snowstorms are we dealing with versus flood incidents? You know what I mean? What are the costs associated with each so that we can start to see how those trends are moving and how some of those costs are shifting? I think it would be helpful information for us to have as a city. Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, Chair McLean. To your point about climate, since 2015, when we had an extraordinary snow winter, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Joden, even though we haven't had a lot of snow, we've had a lot of inclement weather that requires the city to, for public safety reasons, to treat the road.
So that's a good, great point, Counselor. So I've been managing the Department of Public Works as an operations manager for the past 7 years. And what I've noticed in that time managing the snow and ice is we've transitioned more towards treating the roads for salt and ice for longer durations. So to your point, yes, we're treating the roads with more salt, more areas, more roads, which are leading us to look at ways to sit there and lower our economic impact to these areas, like buying salt brine less often, calibrate our spreaders, strategic routes. All these are part of our process to try to minimize our impact, knowing that the environmental justice areas are changing.
Okay, I'll take a motion. Counselor Hepworth.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of $50,000, the expenditures budget in the amount of $408,935 for a grand total of $458,935.
Counselor Hepworth moves to recommend approval of the snow and ice personnel budget in the amount of 50,000. Expenditures in the amount of 408,935 for a total of 458,935. Seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? I see 2 hands plus my own. The matter carries.
Try to make this quick, guys. I know it's a late night. Tab 1028? Oh, tab 28 for the sewer, please. So presenting the sewer budget, Department of Public Work is an integral part of protecting the value of public health and safety services, including maintaining a self and clean city sewer system. DPW crews work diligently to ensure that the system operates properly and safely by regularly cleaning, inspecting, and maintaining it. This includes the repair of pipes, connections, the capture, removal of foreign objects and debris, monitoring the water quality and reduction of potential backup hazards. Furthermore, the DPW installs grates, inlets to keep out debris. Without the expertise of the hard work of my department and the dedication, I've got 5 employees that work on my sewer department. They do a lot of work, run around with their heads cut off sometimes. So firstly, I want to thank them for that. Second, we're looking for a total increase on my water and sewer, my sewer line of a 2.3%. So let me see. We're increasing our operational line by 11%, which would be $2,500 for staffing shortages, 10% for electrical supplies, $10,000 increase to our motor pools repair lines, and $5,000 increase for replacement of equipment like sub pumps, demo saws, that may need to be replaced.
Okay. I don't think there's any questions coming.
Perfect.
My mother's proud every day. Counselor Hepworth.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of $509,119. Expenditures budget in the amount of $202,325 for a grand total of $711,444.
Counselor Hepworth moves to recommend approval of the Public Services Personnel Sewer Enterprise budget in the amount of $509,119. expenditures in the amount of 202,325 for a total of 711,444, seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? I see two hands plus my own. That carries.
Perfect. Since we're running on thunder, my water supply line, on tab 29. So the importance of water distribution for potable water is both for consumption and fire protection, and provides necessary maintenance water to the system to ensure improved efficiency and safety. This will increase funding for our water system because part of our system is funded by water revenue. So we kind of go in, we fix the meters, we fix the leaks, we try to repair and do as much as we can. On this line, we're only asking for a increase of 2% across the board. In the interest of time and trying to get everybody home, I'll open up the floor to any questions. Same reciprocal on the sewer side as the water side. It's the same.
Am I misreading this? You said you're asking for a personnel increase of 2% across the board?
Yes, that's through labor and goods and services.
I think I must be looking at the wrong page. I'm showing a decrease.
No, the decrease would be in our personnel line.
It's 2% total.
2%
Oh,
total.
you're talking about the total. Thank you. Thank you. What happened to all the data points on page 837?
Yeah, they're also missing from the sewer enterprise for DPS. So we'll go back and check on those.
What's driving the increase in contracted services on the expenditure side?
So we're finding it with the staffing shortages because we are short a couple bodies on our water side. Getting employees in for sewer backups is increasingly difficult. I'm only asking for an increase of 2,500. Believe it or not, it actually costs $1,300 to get a contractor in for service. I'm only asking for a contractor to come in twice more than usual. The city still maintains 90% of the sewer backups staff.
This doesn't apply to this year's budget, but it seems like something odd happened in the accounting for the FY 2022 actuals for contracted services. They're just huge. I will happily hand that problem to you and let you solve it at a later time.
To answer that question, typically when the accruals go up, it's typically when we ask for retained earnings to cover water, water lines, water breaks, we would ask for a contractor to come in. Part of that would be transferred in to cover those costs.
So there may have just been a major
may
incident that
have
actually
been a
cost that amount of money.
Ask for retained earnings to that.
Okay. Being no other comments or questions, Counselor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the personnel budget in the amount of 564,119. Expenditures in the amount of 202,450 for a grand total of 766,569.
Counselor Hapworth moves to recommend approval of the Public Services Water Enterprise Personnel Budget in the amount of 564,119. Expenditures in the amount of 202,450 for a total of 766,569. Seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? I see two hands plus my own. That matter carries. Thank you. Counselor Hapworth.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Counselor Hapworth, seconded by
Of the bond or first passage bond order, water sewer, I think.
Yeah, I think the first passage for the water and sewer bond, I think is on the.
It is on the agenda. This is, yeah, I mean, we need to do it. I'm regretful that we weren't able to have Ola and finish with our sewer rates before we have to pass the bond. Okay. So, trying to think about our timing for first and second passage to make sure this happens.
We were just discussing whether or not it was possible to keep the matter open if the committee was choosing to do so, but we're not sure since there wouldn't be sufficient time for it to reflect on the agenda on the 8th.
These are, forgive me, I'm reading off my phone because I don't have a copy of it. This is the bond order for water and sewer capital that I think you've already been discussing tonight previously. So it's just regular it's drain cleaning, the Ocean Ave pump station, Rosie's Pond, some additional sewer maintenance, the pump station improvements, citywide flushing water main distribution improvements, both of which are pretty standard. The transmission system improvements, which are also standard.
And is there a reason that these are being taken up separate from the rest of the CIP?
I think at the time it was because the previous DPW and engineer was not able to attend on the 8th. And so I think we had moved things. And I thought this got moved.
It's posted for today.
Actually, I just pulled up the revised. There it is on the agenda for the 8th, but there is a first passage general fund capital bond order, first passage fiscal year 2024 water and sewer bond. So it may be all set.
Yeah, this is the only outlier that we've had. We haven't passed any other early CIP bond orders. It would only be tonight for this.
Thursday, so you don't have to do it tonight.
Okay. Then I'm going to take that motion for adjournment. Seconded by Counselor Merkel. All those in favor? I see two hands plus my own, and we are adjourned.